I will call to order the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for May 26th. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. McGill, will you call roll, please?
Chair Longstreet.
Here.
Vice Chair Larimore Hall.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
K-Spear.
Here.
Wiscombe.
Here.
Intern Torres Santos.
Here.
And Connor is not present.
Okay. Do we have any written communications? No. Public comment. Any member of the public may address the Commission for up to 1 minute on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the Commission. Seeing no one for public comment, we'll move to community service recognition.
Chair Longstreet, if I could, I actually have some recommended changes to the order of the agenda
Okay.
that I'd like to review with the Commission. Under old business, we would recommend that item 7, the Police Activities League presentation, be taken prior to item 4, which is the proposed fiscal year 2011 budget.
Okay.
And then for new business, we would recommend that item 6, replacement of East Beach Volleyball Court poles and creation of the Henry Bergman Memorial Beach Volleyball Court, be taken before the Mission Creek Restoration and Fish Passage project.
Got it. And you'll remind me if I mess it up, right?
I mean, I would just want to make sure that the folks who came to give comment and input on the budget discussion, how long is the PAL presentation expected to be?
Chair Longstreet, Commissioner Larimore Hall, I believe our plan is for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. And in part, we know the Commission's very interested in that discussion feeding into its budget recommendations. So that's why we propose to...
Oh, I get it. I mean, it makes sense.
Okay. So we have our budget adjustments. Community service recognition.
Chair Longstreet, Terry Brown from the Recreation Division is going to introduce this item.
Hello, Madam Chair and Parks and Recreation Commissioners. My name is Terry Brown. I'm the Youth Activities Supervisor, and it's my pleasure to be able to present the community service recognition to 2 agencies. I just wanted to give a brief history of what they've been doing. They have been helping in the AOK, the After School Opportunities for Kids program, which exists at 5 Title I schools. For the last 5, or in one organization 5 years and another organization 3 years. And just for your information, the 5 sites that AOK exists in are Adams, Cleveland, Franklin, Harding, and McKinley. And we receive our funding from the state of California from the After School Education and Safety Grant. And we receive approximately $7 per day per student, and we are reimbursed by the state for attendance. The cost to actually run the program is approximately $13 per day, and the current enrollment averages 100 students at each after-school program site. So it's imperative that we have these volunteers to help us, because currently the ratio is 20 students to 1 staff person. So without the help of the volunteers, obviously with some of the students, actually probably 75% of them performing below grade level, if we didn't have these volunteers, this program wouldn't be as successful as it is. And I would also like to introduce Debbie Badger, who's the Healthy Start Director. She's new this year. Some of you may remember Teresa Weisglass, who's been recognized in the past by the Commission. And I would also like to introduce the two partners who are here today and some of the representatives, Ann Porter from the Trinity Episcopal Church, and Brad Hardison and Eileen Amix from the Federal Work Study Program at Santa Barbara City College, who have been providing the volunteers.
Thank you.
Come on. Come on. Don't be shy.
Are you
What?
Are you ready for them to come forward?
I am ready for them to come forward.
It is for Trinity Episcopal. And I'd just like to say this is always our favorite part of the meeting because we get to recognize people who make a difference in our community and to the Parks and Recreation Department. So thank you very much for all that you do for the children in our community. Without you, as Terry said, it wouldn't work. So thank you so much. Thank you. And our other recipient is the Santa Barbara City College Federal Work Study Program. I'm sure you have a lot of budding teachers in that program also, so it serves double purposes. So thank you so much for everything you do. Would you like to say anything?
I would just want to introduce our Associate Rector, Joanna Hollis, our Assistant Priest, who is here with us today, and also our Director of Justice and Outreach, Gene Davis, who has supported our program and over the years. Thank you.
I just want to really recognize the Santa Barbara City College students. We currently have 8 students who are Federal Work Study Program who are working at the AOK program. And it's our hope, even with tight budget times, to maybe expand that by 1 or 2 students next year. So that's my goal and my hope. So thank you.
Thank you.
2 other volunteers are here, Marion Freitag and Greg Hawkins, who are 2 of our best and most strongest volunteers.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'm Debbie Badger, Director of Healthy Start ACES and AOK. I just really want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to the after-school programs on the 5 campuses. It's been a successful partnership for 11 years, and I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart that we're able to continue to sustain the program. And again, with the volunteers, we had a total this year of 35 volunteers helping out in the classrooms, primarily with homework assistance. Our primary goal, we're not child care. Our primary goal is really to elevate and provide enrichment activities and academic activities to increase the level of the students on the school campuses. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all you do. Ms. Hannah, I'm going to put you on the spot, and maybe Diego too right now. There was that oversight the other night at the teen banquet, the Youth Awards banquet, and one of our important members was not recognized, and I would like her to step forward right now, and I thought maybe you two would have a little bit to say also. Maggie, would you come up front, please?
There was an oversight at the Teen Awards banquet, and Maggie McDermott, who is the chair of Youth Council, has been with Youth Council for 4 years, I think. 3, and been with teen programs for 4 years. And as our chair and as a graduating senior, we have to, honor her for all of the coordination of all those teens. There's 17, 18, sometimes 19 members to Youth Council, and keeping them motivated and on task at their Brown Act meetings, and for all the community service and leadership that you've offered our community through Youth Council. So congratulations. We apologize for the oversight, and we honor you here today.
And I just want to put a few words in there. She did a great job as being our chair, and just want to say thank you very much, Maggie, and then I know the Youth Council is going to miss you.
Did you want to say anything, Maggie?
I can. I really appreciate my time that I've spent on Youth Council and just in general with teen programs. It's been a great experience, and taken away a lot of good leadership skills from acting as chair and just serving with teen programs. But I have definitely enjoyed my time, and thank you for the recognition.
Thank you, Maggie, for everything you've done.
Where are you going?
I'll be going to Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon. So,
Congratulations.
thanks.
And good luck. Thank you. Okay. Commissioner committee assignment reports. Okay, we'll start with Ms. Wiscombe.
Okay, very brief. Thursday, May 6th, I attended the regular meeting of the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and those items are before you this evening. On Thursday, May 13th, there was a special Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting to discuss the removal of the 14 trees at Westside Community Center, which is also on our agenda this evening. I did not attend that meeting. Unfortunately, I was out of town. On Wednesday, May 12th, I attended a meeting of the Golf Advisory Committee to discuss the budget recommendations that went before the Commission last week and were approved by the Commission.
Okay. Mr. Burns?
Yeah, thank you. Next Wednesday on June 2nd at the county building, they were going to meet with the Front Country Trails Multi-Jurisdictional Task Force. That meets quarterly, and that'll be next Wednesday if anyone would like to come. It's a very good meeting. The Park Foundation is moving along, and I don't have anything really definite to say about what's going on with there other than everybody's worried about a budget. So that's all I have.
Guillermo Hall.
Chair Longstreet, did you report at the last meeting on the meeting of the subcommittee on neighborhood and outreach services? So Chair Longstreet and I both attended a couple of weeks ago now the latest meeting of a subcommittee that's been set up between the Parks Department and the neighborhood center advisory groups to talk about the proposals to restructure the neighborhood and outreach services, sort of work that the department does, as well as the various ways that we as a commission and as a city get input from neighborhoods. It was a really good meeting, I think a breakthrough meeting in that although there's still a ways to go in working out some of the details and getting closer to being able to propose language for an ordinance or for the formal restructuring. I think it was a breakthrough in that I think for the first time there was a consensus around the table about what the purpose and the mission of this restructuring and of this plan is, and I think a lot of creativity and thinking outside the box is going on, which is really exciting because I think that's exactly what we need in these times. I also want to thank Mayor Schneider for attending. I think her input was invaluable and giving us a sort of context. The other thing I want to say is that's been a great part of that discussion for me is the contributions from staff that have really put, not only given us a context in terms of the structure of the city, but also the history of neighborhood services and community input in Santa Barbara, and the fact that the structures that we have now that someone my age might take for granted were really the product of a lot of hard work and community organizing over the past several decades, and really grew from communities sort of standing up and demanding a say in the city. So it's exciting. It's one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to be part of as a commissioner, and I'm really looking forward to the next meeting.
We'll go down to Mr. Casebeer and then come back to Diego. He has his own agenda item.
Okay. Well, last week I attended two meetings. The first was Integrated Pest Management Advisory Committee, and there were reports about several work days that had been supervised by city parks. On the east side, they did a lot of work on the Cacique Creek and under the bridge area. And in Alice Keck Park, there was a good turnout also in Ortega Park and Eastside Park. And part of this also was done with Looking Good Santa Barbara. Also at this meeting, there were requests for exemptions to use pesticides and fungicides at the airport and the golf course. The purpose of this committee is to oversee and to assist our various departments in the use of these materials. And so I'm very impressed with the camaraderie and the sharing and the coordination that goes into whenever at the golf course or at the airport. Those are the primary locations, but it's not taken lightly. They really go the distance in knowing, what's happening with these materials. And then I also attended the Lower West Side Community Center Advisory Committee, and we were honored to have Councilman Bendy White and Mayor Pro Tem Grant House there to conduct interviews to interview new advisory council members for the Lower West Side. And we are going to have a neighborhood block party coming up in June in the Lower West Side to promote and inform the people living in that neighborhood the availability of health services and city services. So overall, very busy week.
Good. I attended the meetings that were mentioned already, and I had the privilege of attending the youth banquet on Monday night and presenting some awards, and it was a very nicely done event, and I think wonderful to see all those young people who are doing so much good work and devoting so much time to our community. And with that, we will move to our youth council report.
Thank you. We have a short report today, but it's something.
It's the end of the year, DA.
Yeah. Youth Council just participated in the annual Youth Leadership Banquet on Monday, which was honoring 48 youth, and they were recognized by 32 different agencies, and that was just another event. As BB said, it was a wonderful opportunity to see how many youth out there we have helping out in the community, and it was just nice to see all the young folks and parents there as well. Another thing the Youth Council was doing is they conducted interviews with about 15 students for the new Youth Council positions, which will be having 9 vacancies, 2 which are current vacancies, along with 7 seniors. And what we're looking for is more applicants from San Marcos High, along with more applicants from private schools, which we can hope we can get teens of color as well. So if you can get the applications in as soon as possible, that would be wonderful. Another thing we discussed and made a motion of the recommendations at the regular meeting about the budget cuts. And basically, Youth Council is opposing cuts to youth programs, but specifically to programs affecting teens in the Teen Center, along with staff advisory. And representatives did meet yesterday with members of the PAL, we'll have more discussion today of this evening. And lastly, the 2010 Youth Council members just wanted to thank the Parks and Rec Commission, along with administration, for supporting the Youth Council events and just being there for the Youth Council. And they just want to say thank you very much. And
Thank you for everything you've done. And will you be with us over the summer, or are you getting...
Yes, I will be.
Okay, great. Super. I skipped over commission and staff communications. Do we have any? We usually don't. And one thing I wanted... Susan Young was here. I just wanted to make sure that we got email invitations to the Lower West Side block party, so any commission members that wanted to attend would have the date and the time. Okay, consent calendar. Is there any issues on the consent calendar that anyone would like to discuss? Anything you want to report out? It seems like Creeks did a great job again. Okay. That brings us to Street Tree Advisory Committee items. Mr. Downey.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, first item on the street tree agenda is 2526 Morel Road. It's a Carolina laurel cherry that has been declining over the years. Excuse me. The condition of the tree is such that the property owner wants to improve the situation and would like to remove the tree and replace it. The tree designated species for this street is a choice of two. It would be either island oak or Chinese pistache, and we would allow them to choose between the two. Either would do well in this site. The Street Tree Advisory Committee and staff recommend that this be approved.
Are there questions or comments from staff or a motion?
Yes, I'd make a motion that we approve the removal of the Carolina laurel cherry at 2526 Morel Road.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 2. Just a reminder,
I was an aye. I didn't hit the button well.
Just a reminder, I do see some unfamiliar faces. If it's about a street tree item or any item on the agenda, please remember to fill out one of our white forms and put the number in the corner. Okay. Mr. Downey.
Item number 2 is 423 West Victoria Street, the Westside Community Center. This is part of a project to improve the entire area. It includes requests to remove 14 trees. 12 of those are blue gum eucalyptus directly adjacent to the freeway sound wall. As these trees get larger, they can only destroy this wall. There's not ample space for these trees to grow. The other 2 trees on the list are slated for removal due to ADA access improvements. The Street Tree Advisory Committee and staff recommend that these removals and replacements be approved, and I would be happy to answer any questions about the project.
Okay.
Are we allowed to come out and talk to
Have you filled out a speaker slip?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have it?
Yeah.
You have to turn it in for us to know you filled it out.
A number of them.
Otherwise, we don't know to call you.
Okay. In reference to this, I know the city and you people are hard up for money, and I don't know why a couple trees like these couldn't simply be reduced and a little root pruning put between the wall and the root system and save you a lot of money. I think that might be a way to go. I think maybe you ought to talk about that rather than just remove the tree and then replant more trees. Those trees could be reduced to be beautiful and safe. Just a thought that you might want to consider.
Thank you very much. With that, we will close public comment on this item, and it is back to the commission. Questions? Discussion?
Yeah, and staff may not have this answer. It seems that one of the main reasons we're doing this is that the lighting on the in the area is very inadequate, and I'm assuming there's a lighting plan, although we didn't see it, but I assume the lighting plan was approved by the Planning Commission or someone else. Does anyone know?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioner Burns, this project required ABR approval and Parks and Recreation approval for the removal of the trees.
Okay. Ms. Wiscombe?
Yes, I just want to ask Mr. Downey about, are all the species of trees that are proposed as replacement trees, are they all capable of withstanding automobile pollution. So, because since it's so close to the freeway, I know that at least one of them is, but I couldn't find any information on the others. If you could just make a comment on that.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioner Wiscombe, the trees have, all the trees on this list have performed very well in Santa Barbara adjacent to the freeway.
Okay. Other questions, comments, motion?
I'll move to approve staff's recommendation to remove the 14 trees at 423 West Victoria.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just a comment to staff that if this is going on because of they want to look at the lighting issues, and we don't see anything about how they're going to correct the lighting issues, and possibly in the future when you have the main issue being something other than the trees, it would be nice to put a little bit more in our package. Do you know what I'm coming at?
Okay.
Chair Longstreet, Commissioner Burns, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
This proposal came forth because there seems to be inadequate lighting and there's vandalism on the site, and all we're looking at is taking out some trees and putting in some trees. I'm assuming they're putting up new light standards and other things along with that to make sure there's more lighting in the area. And I was just thinking that we should have gotten something to show how they're doing the lighting also. Otherwise, we're just getting not as much information as we'd like. It's not. I'm still going to vote for it. It's just I was looking for that yesterday.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioner Burns, we can certainly come back to the Commission with more information about this project. It's actually been in the works for a number of years, and previous commissions have heard presentations. The lighting is actually going to be attached to the wall, and it will light those back areas, and we'd be happy to do that. We're at the point in the project where we needed to make sure we could move forward with the tree removals before we could, finalize all of the planning process. So we can certainly bring it back at a future meeting.
And I served as the liaison to the Westside Community Center for a long time, and this has been in the works. They've had tremendous issues with vandalism in that back area, and I know this plan has been vetted at that committee and along with the ABR, so I would support it. If there's no more questions, all those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That brings us to B, setback trees.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, the next item is 3607 San Jose Lane. This tree was reviewed by this commission about 17 months ago. There's a requirement that it wait 12 months, so it's within that requirement before it comes back to the commission. The proposal is to remove the tree and replant with another tree. They haven't selected the new tree yet. The condition of the tree and the size of the lot are conducive to a smaller tree. In addition, the smaller tree would provide space for adjacent trees to grow better. And the past topping of this tree has created some maintenance issues to maintain it in a safe condition. The arborist report in your packet, the arborist is here if you have questions of him, but didn't feel it was necessary for him to speak unless you had questions. The Street Advisory Committee and staff recommend that this tree be approved on the condition that a tree be replanted in its place.
Okay. Mr. Tyburn, will you turn them all in so that we can...
I'll be glad to do that.
If you're, if this...
I may ask to talk or may not, depending on the situation. Yeah.
Helps us plan a little bit. Okay. Speak to this item?
Yes, that happens to be a fabulous tree, very healthy, and there's no reason this tree has to be removed. You want to save money? Why remove the tree when the tree could be reduced, made into a beautiful, safe, smaller tree? And it looks to me, if I may say so, you people are more or less a rubber stamp for all the wishes of Mr. Downey. I never hear any argument one way or the other. You never want to consider what I might say. And I'd like to say I think this tree is worthy of saving, made smaller, and not have to be removed, stump ground, and then buy another tree. If you're having budget problems, why would you go that way? I'd like you to consider making it a smaller tree rather than just doing everything Mr. Downey says. I'd like you to think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, it's back to the commission. Questions or concerns? I would point out this is a setback tree. This is not going to be removed at city expense. It will be homeowner expense, and it is their wish. They'd entertain a motion?
I would just ask the, I guess it's Bill Spiewak, if I've got his name right. You're saying that if you've got a letter, and I just had a couple of questions, and I guess the big question is, we're talking remove it. The comment is, can we just trim it? And what are your...
Well, that tree's been trimmed. It's been topped twice since before the current owner owned that property. And the result is vigorous shoots, decay in the areas where the tree was topped before. And it becomes a maintenance nightmare over time, where instead it would make sense to remove it and replace it with something that's slower growing and would accommodate the trees. There's a jacaranda to the west, and there's some smaller fruit trees to the right. It would make more sense to start with something that's smaller, that doesn't grow as fast. Teepoos are probably the fastest growing species that we have in this town, and they're one of the highest maintenance trees. So the owner wants a tree, wants more trees, but would prefer to have something that is more accommodating to the property.
Thank you. Okay, other questions or comments? Motion?
Yes, I would move that we approve the removal of the tree at 3607 San Jose Lane under the condition that it is replaced. I believe the committee wanted a 24-inch box. Is that correct, Mr. Downey? And should that be part of?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioner Wiscombe, the committee had mentioned to the applicant who was at the meeting, that asked them if they were willing to plant a 24-inch box tree. They were willing to do so. That was not part of their motion. Their motion was to approve on the condition they replaced the tree.
If you want a condition, you can.
Yeah, I think I'd like to condition it.
Condition it.
I think.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve removal with the condition of a 24-inch box replacement. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we move to 163 La Jolla Drive.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, 163 La Jolla Drive was reviewed by this committee in November. It was postponed pending being able to see a landscape plan. This tree is slated for removal due to a redesign of the property. The entrance to the property is being shifted to the other side, and the landscape plan has now been provided, showing trees will be planted in the setback. The Street Advisory Committee and staff recommend that this tree be approved on the condition that the landscape plan that is proposed is approved by the appropriate review body. That review body would be the Single Family Design Board.
So you basically hold the permit until you get that confirmation?
Yes, Chair Longstreet.
Okay. Questions? We don't have a speaker slip for this item? Okay. Motion?
Sir, I'd make a motion that we approve the removal of the tree at, where are we here?
163 La Jolla.
Yes, sorry, 163 La Jolla Drive, conditioned upon the review and approval of the single-family design board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Mr. Downey.
Next item on the agenda is 27 Alameda Padre Serra. The tree is a cedar tree that has had some cabling work done sometime long in the past. For the most part, the cabling work is no longer holding up the branches. They are supporting themselves without the support of the cabling. The applicant is concerned about the safety of their home and children. The tree is in good condition. As I said, the cables are no longer supporting the branches. They're supporting themselves. The Street Tree Advisory Committee and staff recommend that this removal be denied.
Questions of staff? Motion? Got a lot of trees tonight.
I'll move to accept the staff's recommendation to deny the request for the tree at 27 Alameda Padre Serra.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Oak Street.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, 1 Oak Street was at this commission last month to review this liquid amber. It was postponed so that I would have an opportunity to look at the tree once again and provide some input on the feasibility of future damage to the foundation and the walkway. When the Street Tree Advisory Committee and I went back out to the site, the foundation damage and the walkway damage have been repaired. The tree is about 15 to 18 feet away from those structures since the damage has been repaired, and there's sufficient space to do any root pruning should any future cracks appear. The Street Tree Advisory Committee and staff recommend that this be denied.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment on this. I believe that the removal of this tree will have a significant impact on the neighborhood. If you go up to the corner of Salinas Place and Oak Street and look down and visualize an empty space there without that tree, I think the impact would be quite real.
Thank you. Okay, motion?
Yes, I would move to deny the request to remove the tree at 1 Oak Street.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
1 abstention.
All right. Item D.
I'm being looked at strange by a commissioner. I'll just say that I didn't get a chance. I abstained, only because I didn't get a chance to look on a map. I believe this might be sort of too close to where I live, so just in case, I abstained. That's all.
Yeah.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, 1032 East Mason Street is, there's a proposal to develop this property. I had requested a landscape plan at the time we received the application. We have not received that landscape plan yet. The Street Tree Advisory Committee did not feel comfortable making a recommendation without that plan to approve or deny. Their recommendation is to postpone until such time as we receive a landscape plan for this tree.
I think that's more comfortable. Is there a motion to postpone?
Yes, I'd make a motion to postpone until we see a landscape plan.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we finished our trees for tonight. And now we are moving to item 7, the PAL presentation. Zachary, do you want to?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, Sarah Hanna, Recreation Programs Manager, is going to start the presentation, and then we do have PAL representatives here. I'm going to hand out a write-up that Sarah prepared for the Commission. She'll be going over that as well with this presentation.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I wanted to start with a brief introduction about PAL and our relationship with PAL, then move on to a PAL presentation about what they currently do and some of the proposed programming at the Teen Center. Then I give a little synopsis on the Youth Council and PAL meeting that was held last night. And then I would like to review a few elements of the lease that will be put into items of the lease that will be put in so that there are some terms with PAL, and let you know what some of those are, and then give you an opportunity for questions for the Police Activities League and to review some of the comments and concerns that we may have. So to begin with, this department has had a long-standing relationship with the Police Activities League for over 8 years, and it began originally as an idea from Cliff Lambert. At that time, we were implementing our own scholarship program, and it was getting quite burdensome. And we were seeing that scholarships were being offered from many nonprofits around town, so Cliff Lambert came up with this idea that maybe one agency should divvy up the scholarships, and then it would be more fair to families and such. And the Campership Alliance was created, and then Cliff tapped into Police Activities League to do the actual distribution, contacting of the families, placement of the kids, transportation, and also they provide supplies to participants that may not have them, like backpacks and lunches and those kinds of things. So it began simply with our coordination with the Campership Alliance, and then since then has moved on to after-school program opportunities. In the AOK program, they provide art and digital editing, and then on now to the junior high after-school program, which they took over for us last year. So with that, we have a long and fruitful history with the Police Activities League. It's really wonderful to have a collaborator that you can call, or they can call you, and you can lean on to fill in areas that you need filled in, staffing-wise, supply-wise, all types of aspects that we collaborate on. So with that, I want to introduce the Executive Director, Ed Zeiler, and he's going to take it from here.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Ms. Longstreet and Commission. Like Sarah said, my name is Ed Zeiler. I'm the Executive Director of PAL. I retired in December of 2008 from the Police Department as a captain. I spent the last 5 years at the Police Department in Community Services and was the Executive Director as an officer at the Police Department, and began the relationship with Sarah in Parks and Rec. I think our first year with myself was 2005. And that's when we first started the AOK program and kind of went from there. The Police Activities League, you know, our mission is that we provide safe after school and summertime activities for children and try to break down the barriers between police and community. That's basically what our mission is. We have been part since the very beginning. After we had the homicide in March of 2007, the City of Santa Barbara put together the Youth Gang Task Force, South Coast Youth Gang Task Force. We've been part of that. Part of that was partnering with Parks and Recs, and our direction from that gang task force was to try to do on-campus activities, to try to put opportunities on the campus so that, you know, kids have something to do after school before they usually would go home in the afternoon hours, and also to provide them opportunities during the summer hours. So that's basically what our mission is to do. We started that very first year as a pilot program with the city schools and Parks and Rec, and went on campus and started to do, we initially went in there saying we were going to do boys soccer. Well, part of that is that when you get the okay from the school district and the school board to be part of this program, the principals of the individual junior highs, that's their school, and you have to go to them and say what is it they would like on their campus. But the first thing one of the principals said was, well, what about the girls? You're right, what about the girls? Okay, and well, what about basketball? And so what happened was we went on there proposing the first year to do 4 boys teams on the 4 middle school campuses. We ended up with 13 teams because we had more than 1 boys team and 1 girls team. We ended up with 2 boys teams and 2 girls team in each of the sports. So it grew about 29% the first year. So when that year was over, then we worked again with Parks and Rec and became the lead agency to provide those opportunities on the junior high campuses this year. We do get money from the Parks and Rec Department General Fund, the City of Goleta General Fund, the City of Santa Barbara and Goleta's Community Development Block Grant, and then the city schools give us money as well to do that program. We proposed this year we were going to do about 410 children after school on campus. We're going to go over 500 this year, probably about 510. We average about 240 a week on the middle school campuses. And we do the transportation. Part of the reason that we did it, we changed it, that we bought about $7,500 worth of uniforms. We transport the kids from school to school, trying to break down that barrier between Goleta and the city of Santa Barbara and the east side and the west side, and get them on their campuses and kind of realize the kids are the same no matter where they go to school. So we've had a couple of issues with that, but it seemed to work pretty well. The La Colina this last term, they had 42 girls that played on their soccer team, on their 2 teams. So that was pretty amazing because it was significantly more than what they thought, and the principal was pretty happy with that. So this whole transition, it's just been something that's growing, and what came up last year when we took the lead was the teen center, because it was an issue. We talked about budget last year, some issues, and again this year, Sarah and I talked, and we've had several meetings with Sarah and Nancy, and they wanted to know whether or not we would be up for, being part of the teen center and taking over the teen center and the operation of it. But part of that was that they wanted to continue the programs. They wanted to still have youth council input. They wanted to try to increase the amount of, kids that are using the center. And would that be something that would work with PAL? So we've talked about this probably for 6 months, and we went through the board of directors and got the approval to have this conversation and to enter into some type of an lease agreement to do that. What we have a little bit different. I know the teen center is a teen center, but part of what we try to do, and I learned back in the 90s, gangs, you can't start at the high school level with kids in the community. You have to start earlier. So we initially started in the high school. We went down to middle school. Now we're down in the 4th and the 5th and the 6th grades at the 5 Title I schools. And we've had kids now that started with us in AOK that played in middle school sports, and now they're in youth leadership. So that's kind of how you recruit, kind of from the base, get them young, get them introduced to PAL, what it is we do, and try to bridge between the 3 levels of school, from elementary to middle to high school. So we did meet with the youth council yesterday. There were some concerns that they did have come up. We are by no means coming in there to try to change what it is that they do. We want to come in there and enhance those programs. We welcome them for the youth council to be part of youth leadership. We've already met with our youth leadership and asking them if they want to be part of youth council. They can do that as well. We want to come in there and keep that a viable center, increase the participation in there, increase the programs in there. A lot of the direction and programming we get are from our youth leadership and from the principals and the students at the 9 schools that we work on. That's kind of how we develop our programs. We don't just sit back as staff and go, okay, we're going to do this program. We go to the kids at the school level and the youth leadership level and find out what they want to do. And then we try to successfully raise the money to do it. Our budget this next year is probably going to be about $625,000. We do get money from the National PAL. They've given us $32,000 to do youth leadership and mentoring. We're in a mentoring program right now with our youth leadership and our new Explorer program that we started. The police officers mentor them, and then in turn we take the youth leadership and the Explorers and we use them to mentor the kids in the 5th and 6th grade that have been identified through the advocates on campus that they're either brothers and sisters of older gang members, to try to divert them out of that before they get there. So we will be working with the 5th and 6th grade using, at one point, youth leadership and the Explorers will be mentees, but then they're going to turn around and mentor the younger kids. And the younger kids we do have in the center are some of the kids we are going to, with the AOK, they'll come in the center for an hour. Each one of the Title I schools get 1 day a week there in the digital editing, and then they get 1 day a week at the Museum of Art doing art programs. So we try to do it, as big a picture as possible, get them as young as we can, and try to keep them going on the straight line. We do have the programs that we have with the youth leadership and sport programs. We do have some accountability for it. We don't charge our kids anything. They do all of our sports for free. We pay for everything. Uniforms, referees, coaches, everything. The only thing we ask them is that they go to school every day, that they stay off the bad citizenship list, they do their homework, and they maintain a C average. And that's gone through the school board, and they thought it was a good idea. We thought initially when we started it that there might be a little friction on it, and what we found not to be the case at all. That our attendance of kids have grown, and what will happen is that, for instance, at La Cumbra, if they don't turn in their homework, they sit on the bench and they watch the kids practice. So their motivation is to get their homework turned in, then go out and play again. So I did tell the youth council that we have no intentions at all in putting that on them, but if they want to come be part of youth leadership or be in a sport program, then sure, that's basically what the accountability would be, go to school, turn in your homework, and maintain a C average. We do have mentoring programs, tutoring programs if the kids fall below that level, to try to get them up to where they should be. So that's kind of the whole philosophy on it, and I really think it should be a fairly seamless transition to what's currently there. We have no wishes to go in there and change things that are in there. We're going to leave it the same. We will bring in some more computers for the kids for the digital editing and tutoring in the one library area, but the actual drop-in area, sports, everything else goes on. We have no ideas of making any changes in there at all. So we just want to come in and enhance the programs, have more things for them to do, get their input, find out what they want to do. Any programs that we want to start new additionally to what we're doing right now, I run it through the chief of police and our board of directors, so they all know what it is that we're doing. And if it's a youth related event, we have the money or the funding for it. In the 5 years I've been there, there hasn't been a time when they said, well, no, you can't do that program. So our youth leadership, we take to Life After High School at Fresno State every summer for a week. They get to learn what it's like to live in the dorms, eat campus food, have professors that teach a class. We take them to Sacramento Experience. They spend 3 days up there. They get to go on the legislative floor, meet the representatives from the area. We're taking 4 kids this July to Washington, D.C. For the same type of a national leadership program. So it's more stuff we're going to bring in to try to enhance things, make more programs, and then, continually get input. We meet with our youth leadership once a week as a whole group. And they do a lot of community service. They have a president and a vice president, and we get ideas from them about what programs they want to do. So they've successfully applied for grants and got them. So we kind of get direction from them. We definitely don't like to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of people in the community that know how to do things and know how to do them right. So we'd rather partner with them and do something together and let them take the lead. Because quite frankly, I used to be a cop. What do I know about art? What do I know about tutoring? What do I know about certain things? So you get the experts to come in that already have successful programs, part with them. That's why we're in operational agreements right now with 8 different agencies and then 13 with the Campership Alliance. So it's worked well, and we want to continue to do that and make the teen center better programming and do the best we can.
Thank you. We have. Do you want do questions now or have public comment? Let's do our public comment. We've got Chloe Hunt. And Chloe, did you want to speak or give your minutes to Maggie? Good.
Good evening, you guys. Just again, my name is Chloe Hunt, and I'm part of the Santa Barbara Youth Council. As mentioned earlier, we did have a meeting with PAL yesterday to discuss what we had mentioned earlier, how we weren't exactly comfortable. And there were things that came up that we still have questions about, that we're still not comfortable with moving the teen center over with. One of those things is that with, if you look PAL's different organizations, the participation criteria, with their sports participation and leadership activities. That also applies to new activities that they would be taking into the teen center, with, like their digital editing class. And those rooms then wouldn't be able to be used for teens for more, and because they're younger generations. The teen center was created for the older generation, for teens in high school. With PAL's new thing, they're bringing in the young elementary school, middle school, but none of the ways that they were introducing to us, that they told us yesterday, none of those applied to high school. And yes, they do have their youth leadership and their Explore program, but those aren't for the teen center. Those aren't ways that the teen center would be able to become bigger and attract more teens. So that was a problem that we had. And now, thank you, and we'll turn it over to Maggie.
Okay. Come on up, Maggie.
Hi. Again, my name is Maggie McDermott, Chair of Santa Barbara Youth Council. As Chloe said, we did meet with PAL yesterday, and I feel like I came out of that meeting with a little bit more questions than I came in with. We have many concerns relating with the transfer, if it does go through, with the transfer from the city teen center to a PAL-run teen center. Some of the few things was, again, as Chloe mentioned, there was a lot of work with younger generations, like 5th, 6th, 7th graders, but the teen center was created for teens, 13 and up. With PAL programming, I feel like they don't really line up quite eye to eye, just because we are targeting older teens. And I understand, you trying to catch kids at a younger age and, bring them up, but what about for the kids that didn't get that when they were younger? It's good to, have somewhere for them to be when they are older. Another concern would be that there are teen center members that have stated if there was a police influence or a police presence, whether it be through a mentor program or just at the teen center, they will no longer attend the teen center. And I think that says a lot for the fact that we are trying to help these kids who may have gone through some bad situations, but hey, they're getting off the streets, they're coming to the teen center, but with that a possibility of a police presence, we may be losing some of those attendees, which that's the population that we're trying to attract and trying to help out. And I think if we lose that would kind of lose the purpose of the teen center. Just a few other things was there's many concerns, and the fact that there's a perception of youth council as if we don't care about the teen center, or if we don't actually participate in teen center activities, or we don't attend the teen center. We do. Like, as Susan said yesterday, Diego, Ellie, myself, Julie, countless youth council members, we're there all the time. But I think there needs to be something said that the youth council isn't the teen center. We oversee the teen center. So I think that needs to be stated, that we aren't the teen center. But we love the teen center, and that's why we want to keep it underneath the youth council. Sorry, I'm probably over time, but thanks so much.
Okay. And we have no other speakers for this item, so we will close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. So, questions for PAL. Mr. Burns and I attended the meeting yesterday, and I understand that, we heard these concerns and kind of talked about them yesterday. So, yes.
Yes, I just want to ask Chloe or Maggie, one or the other. Did you discuss any ideas with PAL in terms of how you might alleviate some of your concerns? Are there programs that perhaps PAL could introduce that you think would bring the teens in if the teen center were turned over?
If you want to come up, if you have anything to say, otherwise I'll chime in. Or Diego was there too.
We did talk about how we wanted to maintain a relationship with PAL, with probably monthly meetings, or have a liaison between the youth council and PAL. But I guess that was one of our other concerns, was if PAL does put on that the kind of criteria or participation criteria, here it is. With teen center programs, we had a concern about that because some of the teen center attendees don't have a C average, and if PAL was to put in place that participation criteria, they wouldn't be able to participate in those programs. And so that was a concern, but we would be willing to work with PAL and think of programs, but we'd have to work with, the fact that not all teen center attendees they wouldn't meet that criteria. But we do want to maintain communication, obviously, if this does go through. I mean, the teen center would not exist without youth council. So that was one of our concerns. So I hope I covered your question.
Thank you very much.
Diego, did you want to add anything to that, or no?
No.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. If the transfer did go through, I don't know if staff can answer this, but with the outreach coordinator supervisor, if that position remains, but just the transfer of the teen center goes to PAL, what would that position of the outreach supervisor be?
Chair Longstreet and commissioners and intern Diego Torres Santos. They aren't linked together, as you'll see in the discussion tonight. The transfer of the operation of the Teen Center to PAL is part of the original budget or the proposed budget, and the position, not the vacant recreation coordinator position, that is also part of the original budget. But the elimination of the Neighborhood and Outreach Services Supervisor position is part of the budget options, and that will be part of the discussion tonight. Currently, Susan is the liaison for Youth Council. She also does collaboration with the Santa Barbara Teen Coalition, does Lower West Side outreach, but the programming of the Teen Center is not under her specifically at this time, and she's not supervising those staff, though she is, at the Teen Center quite frequently. So her focus has changed when it merged. She still is a link to Youth Council, the leadership activities, the community service activities that Youth Council does, the speak outs and such. She works with teen agencies to bring programming into the Teen Center, but not per se changing all the programming that's going on in the Teen Center. So that essentially would remain the same. And I was going to talk about that a little bit more at the end. But a couple of things that Maggie and maybe Chloe brought up that we talked about yesterday. PAL was very specific that their participation criteria has to do with PAL programming. And essentially that programming is out in the school district facilities, maybe some facilities right now. But it wouldn't affect nor be a requirement of any of the drop-in teens that come to the Teen Center, nor it would be a requirement of teens participating in programs at the Teen Center. Yes, if you decide to take a PAL program that is funded by PAL, yes, you would have to meet that criteria, and PAL would also be working with teens at the center to encourage the teens that come in to have a C average, to do their homework, to have good citizenship. So it would be, an overarching desire and goal for all teens to be that way, but it wasn't a criteria for drop-in teens to participate at the Teen Center. And yes, it is a focus of PAL right now to work with the elementary school age, to work with the middle school age, but this also presented an opportunity for them to bring forward the age groups so that they can start working with teenagers too. And as Ed talked about, they've been working with youth for many years now, and those youth are aging up, and there's not teen programming for those youth to do. So it's adding to what we already do. It's not taking away. So if new funding becomes available through grant funding for PAL and we can add programs at the Teen Center, that's fantastic. We don't have enough money to provide programs for free for teens, and there is a lot of opportunity for expansion and collaboration. So we did discuss yesterday also if there would be a negative response for some teens to the word police. I would have Police Activities League and how that would be taken. But every time, the Teen Center evolves and continues to evolve. And though you may lose some participants that are working at the teen center now, or going to the teen center now, those participants may end up going to the West Side Center or have already left to go to Franklin Center at this time. So, you know, participation may change, but hopefully the desire is to increase the outreach to teens at the teen center and to increase programming overall. So,
I think that's part of it, is that we can't look at this in isolation. It has to deal with the whole picture of the budget right now and the reorganization of the neighborhood and outreach services. So we've kind of combined this in hopes of reaching out into neighborhoods, and we can't do it all. So to me, it just brings more resources in to provide programming, and that's what we're looking at. The other question that was brought up was the digital editing, and I know that's a big one because of the age of the participants, but I don't really have a problem with 1 hour of the day, that early hour, when I think that we don't have so many kids coming in. And to me, it starts to introduce kids at a younger age to our facilities, and that's what we want, is we want them to feel that's a place that they come to for things. So to me, I think it's an expansion and kind of gives us a great way to attract more people. So, the one thing I had suggested yesterday, and I would still continue to suggest it, is that we do some sort of quarterly meeting. I don't want to get meetinged out, and that's real easy to happen. But I think especially in this transition phase that a quarterly meeting to just run by how it's going so that we don't end up in a position where a lot of things build up that maybe need to just be ironed out. That includes staff and the advisory committee, youth council, and maybe the liaison to the youth council from the commission. But just, not 3-hour meetings, but an hour to kind of go over what's the programming been, look at the numbers, talk about the issues, and move on. So, Mr. Burns.
Just a question. If the digital editing place, if you didn't need that position, the computer space, would you guys have looked at the teen center, or if you found another place, would that work just as well, or is the digital editing the main reason you're looking at this?
No, the digital editing is not the main reason we're looking at it. I mean, the reason it came up was our partnership with Parks and Rec, and they came to us and said that there was a need coming up and wanted to know if we'd help them out, which we've done many times in the past. When I retired from the police department, we had an office in the police department at the annex that the nonprofit paid for, and soon after I left, we had to leave that particular facility because of some budgetary issues, so we had to leave. We're in an office right now that is up on the 1300 block of Santa Barbara Street. It's too small right now to do the digital editing. It's just too small of an office space that we have. So when the opportunity came up and she mentioned to me about having that facility, then it was, of course, because of our partnership with AOK, and we weren't able to do digital editing this year, we thought what a great place that would be to do our digital editing program. Our youth leadership and our Explorer program that we have, we don't have a real place for them all to get in one room. We can put about 14 people in our one room, and that's it. So we can't get the whole group in there. So maybe, on a scheduled meeting on the calendar that'll be public to everybody, we could schedule meetings for anybody who wants a meeting that could come in and use the center and have enough room for them to meet. So it wasn't specifically digital editing at all. It was the whole partnership that we have with Parks and Rec, and it helps us out because it gives us more place to do programming. We have been involved with a lock-in program there when we spent the night there with the kids, a team program. The center that's there, our youth leadership there, they come to our office, but there's really nothing for them to do. We usually put them to work in the office doing things, community service, but the teen center is another enhancement for us because the kids have recreation and come in there and use the recreation things that are there. So I think it was nothing individual. It is going to be about an additional $25,000 to $26,000 in staffing and about $8,000 for the lease part of it. So it is a significant amount of money more that we're going to put out to be able to do that. But I think across the board, we had an event in April, the end of April, our one single fundraiser we had, we did the best year ever. So in the economic times being what they are, we're pretty happy with that. And, you know, our overhead's only about 21%, which is fairly low for a nonprofit, and the rest of our money goes into programming. So hope that answers your question for you.
Just to follow up, I'm at the meeting yesterday. It was it seemed that not everyone had really talked before the meeting, and I get a feeling that in the next few months we're going to have more communication with Teen Council and to make it so they're comfortable with what you guys have planned. I'm comfortable with what you're doing. I hope you take into account the questions and concerns they have, because they are a big part of our community, and I just so you know that. Thank you.
No, I agree with you 100%. We did talk yesterday about having a meeting. We plan to go in there September 1st after campership is over. You know, within that first month, we'll have a meeting and invite everybody there and talk about what it is that we do. There's no additional programming other than what we've said right here that we have planned for next year. We are going to start our budget, because we okay our budget in September. If we have any ideas between now and then about a program that we might want to put in next year's budget, then we will go through Sarah and go through the council and say, okay, this is what we're looking at for next year. What do you think? How do you think we should proceed? Would you want to be part of it, or do you want to be part of the program? So we start that. I mean, Sarah and I have had hours of conversation about how this transition is going to happen and who's, you know, needs to have the input into what it is that we're going to do. I don't see that there's going to be any problems. We're never going to be able to answer the question about people being afraid of the police, you know, or coming in because there's police involvement. You know, we saw that across the board, but I'll tell you what I've seen. When we have police and PAL staff on 9 campuses 5 days a week, and I have not really seen, you know, a particular fear of the police, you know, at all. If we're in there, you know, we're in there as PAL staff and PAL workers, and yes, we are police, but we're not in there in a police role. We're in there in a youth services role and trying to reach out to them and provide programming for them. So that, you know, that's kind of what we do. And I you know, that particular, like Sarah said, that might, you know, affect some kids that might want to go to one of the other centers, but I think we'll have more participation by the youth across the board for all of our programs.
Mr. Larimore Hall.
So, I mean, the proposal includes a lease, right?
Correct.
So how long would that lease be for?
The proposal would include a lease. We will actually end up being in 3 different agreements with the Police Activities League, a lease that would start in September and end June 30th of 2011. We would have our co-sponsorship agreement with them so that they can use other city facilities at either waived fee rates or discounted rates so that they can run additional sport leagues and programs. And then we also would enter into an agreement that's a 3-way agreement between the school district, Police Activities League, and the city to run the junior high after-school program. And I can go into more details about what is included in the lease if you'd like.
No, it's not the specifics. What I'm looking for is, I think that this. Let me say at the outset, I'm very, very, very willing to give this a try. I think it's an experiment, and so that's why my question is about the sort of length of time. So I trust you guys to negotiate the lease and for that all to be on the up and up. So yes, I'm willing to give this a try. I want to take a shot at saying a couple things about the concerns that have been raised by the Youth Council, and I'll probably end up with my foot in my mouth by the time I'm done, because some of these things are kind of difficult things to talk about, and as usual in Santa Barbara, we're kind of talking around them. I mean, the first thing that I would really strongly urge the Youth Council to do is, in addition to coming up with a schedule of meetings, is to make an agreement with PAL about what does the day-to-day operation and management of the Teen Center look like. What happens on a random Wednesday when there's a question or there's a programming conflict over the use of the computers and things like that. Come up with a leadership model or a management model that includes youth council leaders in the day-to-day management, and you don't have to wait between scheduled meetings to deal with issues and so forth. I think that will help break down barriers of communication between the PAL leadership and the youth council leadership, and I think everyone will learn from one another. I mean, look, maybe it's a train wreck, maybe it doesn't work, but I think the best way to give it a good shot is to think concretely about what does the day-to-day leadership look like. The other thing I would say is that, look, I think that we need to be really careful in how we talk about this issue of young people being alienated from a facility or a program because it's run by the police. Because in one sense, it seems like the implication is that the youth who would be alienated by something like that are youth that are at risk of being involved in criminal behavior, youth who live in communities that have higher rates of gang activity, etc. The fact is, I'm sure that there are young people so I think that that's a wrong assumption on two levels. The first is that I think that there are young people in this community from affluent parts of town who don't have anything to do with gangs, etc., that probably also would be alienated by going to a facility that's run by the police for a whole other set of reasons. That's okay. That's fine. That is what it is. And on the other hand, I mean, I bet that if I go to the teen center, a teen center run by PAL, I bet I will see an increase in participation by youth of color, at-risk youth, and people from the less affluent parts of town, because that's, in a lot of ways, the community that PAL services and works with. Now, the thing is that there's more than one way, and they're somewhat incompatible. It's hard to do them at the same time and in the same place. But there's more than one way to provide alternatives to bad behavior, help young people who are at risk, so to speak, find constructive activities. There's a way that is kind of very youth-driven, kind of alternative, that is about, hey, we can create our own sets of authority, we can be autonomous from institutions and so forth. And that works great for some people and is a great way to go about things. And I think that that's kind of the model that the teen center has been running on. And there's another one that's about, let's find a way to come to common ground with authority figures. Let's learn that authority figures aren't always bad. Let's learn from each other, and let's get some structure into these communities. And that's kind of the PAL model. They both work. They don't both work for everyone. It's sometimes hard to do them both in the same facility. I think the best shot we have of trying to do them both in the same facility is to make sure that the day-to-day governance involves kind of both representatives of both approaches. And I think if we go about it that way, we can see that, like, we're as we say in sociology, we're over-determining this question of what it means to have PAL be involved in the teen center. I could be totally wrong. This could totally not work, and that's why I asked how long the lease was. But I think that we should give it a shot, and not just for budgetary reasons, but because I think that this actually could be a really interesting opportunity. Again, everything that I've heard from the Youth Council, I take very, very much to heart, and anything that I can do as an individual commissioner to kind of back up specific requests, specific asks, specific demands even from PAL about how the governors can work, I have your back, and I'm an ally in that.
Any other comments? Mr. Casebeer.
Initially, I had my concerns about this transfer, and I had a conversation with Director Seiler, and it seems to me that the teen center is a jewel that is presently underutilized. It has unbelievable potential to have significant impact on the youth of our community. Unfortunately, our Parks and Rec financial situation is going to preclude injecting staff time, program time, the financial resources to really take this center to the next level. I look, and I'm going to hold Director Zeiler and Officer Wojo's feet to the fire as far as taking this center to the next level so that kids have a place to go. One thing that I am concerned about in looking at reviewing the operation of the center presently, how many days a week is it open? Sarah?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, currently it's open 2:30 to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. There are special events and weekend events and some meetings that go beyond that. We do have some private rentals on weekends, but during the last budget round, we eliminated the Saturday opening because we'd get kids, but there'd be so few spread out through the day that it wasn't really a cost-effective use for us.
Somewhere I thought I saw it was Tuesday through, it is Monday?
Monday through Friday.
Okay. All righty. And I'd just like to see those hours of operation expanded, because every hour there is a place for one of these kids to go, we have a better chance keeping them out of trouble. That's all my comments for right now.
Okay, thank you. I would just say I think this is a leap of faith for both sides. It's not just our leap of faith. They are taking on a commitment to us, too. So what's going to make it successful is that we all keep communicating. Have you filled out a speaker slip, Mr. Tyburn? No, public comment is closed on this item. You had to be in the public comment time. And so we just need to keep communicating about it. The reality is we are not providing the program we need to be. We should be. We want, not should be, that we want to be. This is an opportunity to bring more in, and I think we all welcome that. So this item's just for information, and I appreciate your coming in today, and thank you for coming too from the Teen Council, and we will move on in deliberations with the budget and kind of wrap up everything. So if there's no more questions of Mr. Zeiler, then we'll be moving on. Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Zachary, so do we want to roll right into budget?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, your next item is the FY11, budget for the general fund portion of the department. We do have the East Beach volleyball item, so I would leave it to the Commission's discretion as to
I think
whether
we can
to do
take
budget.
that first. How about we do East Beach volleyball first? And you don't have to sit through all of our budget deliberations. What?
There's also people here. There's a bunch of people.
Yeah, but I don't want to rush our budget.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, Rich Hanna, Senior Recreation Supervisor, will begin the presentation, and then we also have representatives from the Friends of East Beach Association.
Good evening, Chair Longstreet, Commissioners. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce the staff report for the replacement of the East Beach volleyball courts. Image up here. And the creation of the Henry Bergman Memorial Volleyball Courts. By way of introduction, East Beach volleyball courts are steep in tradition and are often referred to as the beginning of beach volleyball in California. The courts at East Beach have provided a training ground for thousands of youth participating in John Lee's Beach Volleyball Clinic, which we're happy to partner with as part of Parks and Recreation's summer offerings. And many of these local youth have moved on to represent Santa Barbara and play beach volleyball on a professional level, and in some cases internationally representing the United States at the Olympics. Icons and Olympians such as Karch Karai, Todd Rogers, Phil Dalhouser, Dax Holdren, John Lee, and of course Henry Bergman are all synonymous with Santa Barbara and the best of beach volleyball. The existing volleyball court poles at East Beach are in various states of disrepair and functionality. They're not aesthetically pleasing as you drive by, and the closer you get to them, you really notice the state of disrepair that they're currently in. Due to the budget challenges that our department continually faces, the annual replacement of the volleyball poles at East Beach has fallen behind schedule, which is why before you tonight we have the potential for a win-win situation. The Friends of East Beach Association have proposed funding the materials and creation of an initial Henry Bergman volleyball court and the subsequent replacement of all of the existing volleyball court poles for a total of 16 volleyball courts at East Beach. The initial Henry Bergman court will be used to assist the Friends of East Beach Association solicit additional funding to complete the replacement of the remaining volleyball court poles. The Parks and Recreation Department supports this effort, and it will improve because we believe it will improve the aesthetics at East Beach. And we are in agreement with the Friends of the East Beach Association that all of the remaining volleyball court poles would need to be replaced within 2 years and ideally at all the same time so that we have consistency down there to all the users and beach visitors. This project has received administrative approval from the Community Development Department, and they're permitted to move forward. Their proposal includes the use of stainless steel poles, and they were asked as a condition not to have those poles be shiny. The East Beach Friends of East Beach Association has already mitigated that, and they have a sample here tonight just to show you. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Roger Perry and Dr. Laszlo Kurlai, and then I will be available for any questions at the end of the presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you all, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Friends of East Beach are a community group that has identified a problem and have come up with a solution to help Parks and Rec in the city improve a gem that's currently at East Beach. The inspiration for this was a very quiet, meek-mannered man who was the first truly dominant volleyball player to come out of Santa Barbara. This last fall, Henry Bergman passed away. And as a result of his passing, it spurred an interest in leaving his legacy there permanently. As this group began to meet, we looked at a variety of different options. The initial concept was a park bench, another type of memorial, and someone came to us with the idea of dedicating a court. It's our intention through this restoration to honor the tradition of the game, memorialize legends of the sport with a close connection to Santa Barbara, establish the Henry Bergman Court as the first of the 15 courts to be upgraded, and to ensure that East Beach remains a premier destination for volleyball, both in the state of California and internationally. To date, we have managed to gain the support of Samana Nautica, the Athletic Roundtable, and Santa Barbara Beautiful. We have had conversations with funding sources that are willing to help support our endeavors. The Wood Clysons Foundation, Santa Barbara Foundation, Santa Barbara Beautiful, the remaining foundation from the '84 Olympics, and private donors. And I want to go back. I overlooked something. After Henry's passing, there was a memorial that was conducted down at Cafe del Sol. Of the 150 to 200 people who showed up from all over the state, seed money for this was raised to the tune of close to $6,000. So the funding for the inaugural court is already intact, and the seed money to promote this or progress this forward are already there. We also have the support of a number of members of the community, volleyball history. The AVP, Todd Rogers, our Olympian, and Karch Kurai. The current state of the courts down there now are a challenge at best. Salt air is not forgiving. The cranks, the mechanisms are contracted out by the city, and someone has the joy of maintaining them. Our proposed change, as mentioned by Rich, is to reconstruct the poles out of a stainless steel material. This is the result of stainless being sandblasted, and then there will be a pacification process put over it to prevent any weathering or pitting or marring. Would you like this to go forward? an example of the inaugural court for Mr. Bergman. This would be the one that is denoted as Court 1, which holds the finals of all events down there. We'll give you a layout of where it actually lines up onto the court. It's actually 7 in the numerical pattern of the way the courts are structured. There's the overview. And our conclusion. I'm open to your questions.
I would just add that they came before the Park Foundation last week, and the Park Foundation agreed to support and hold funds for the organization as they move through their fundraising. So they have done their work. Are there other questions here? Mr. Perry. Mr. Casebeer.
I'd like to first off just make a comment that I am a member of the board of directors of this Friends of East Beach Association. I'm a longtime player at these facilities and a benefactor of volleyball. So I speak in favor of this project. As Roger said, it's a win-win all the way around. The group is organized, they're enthusiastic, and I think once we get that initial court in place, then as it will serve as an example of what the entire place will look like, and people will come. It's like build it and people will come, and people will write checks and we'll get the project done.
Okay, well, let's open the public comment. We have a few speaker slips now. Mr. Karai, did you want to have some comments to make?
Just very little to add to Roger's presentation. There are some of us in the room who knew Henry. I think Chris did, John Lee, and I, my son, at the ripe age of 12, was an admirer of Henry. And his quiet, soft-spoken, self-confident, hard-working ways made Henry somebody really special, well beyond his athletic prowess. If this thing is going to take place and materialize, those of us who know Henry probably would say that if he were in this room, he would not want to have him idolized. But he certainly deserves the credit for posthumously to upgrade the beach where he spent all those long, long hours of practice. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Jan Roberta. I hope I got him in the right order, and followed by John Lee.
Thank you for letting me make some brief comments. I'm really here on behalf of the Santa Barbara High School class of 1962, of which Henry was a member, and myself and many of our classmates wish to strongly voice our support for the establishment of the Henry Memorial Court. Prior to his trailblazing contributions to the sport of beach volleyball, Henry was a highly talented basketball and track athlete, a proud and admired Santa Barbara High School Don. He was soft-spoken and a humble student, fondly remembered by his classmates for his friendly and genuine personality. I agree with Laz that he would be the last one to expect anything like this to happen in his name. A memorial court in Henry's name is the perfect tribute to a beloved classmate and a real wonderful Santa Barbara volleyball icon. The class of '62, several of the classmates have contributed to the fund, and I'm sure would add additional support if the project is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker will be John Lee.
Many of us have mentioned how nice it is to have this facility down at the beach. It really is the best volleyball facility in Southern California. And it's because there's ropes down there. You go to a lot of other beaches, even Manhattan Beach with its very famous tournament that it has, and it's great historical value. Santa Barbara has the best facilities. You don't have to bring your own ropes down there, your own nets, and so that's a tribute to our recreational awareness and Rich and Sarah before him, and a lot of years of pride. Well, Henry was one of the first, as you heard, recognizable figures of that pride. When I came down to the beach, I saw him and said, wow, this is something I want to identify with. And that's the way any good athlete directs their development in sports. And we've had plenty of good athletes that have come down to those beaches, seen players like Chris Casebeer, with his moderate fame, inspires young players to say, hey, I want to be that kind of an athlete. I want to be as tan as that guy. I want to be able to hit the ball like that. And both men and women, we've got women's courts and men's courts. Not all beaches have that facility. And throughout history, it's just been a real source of pride to be one of the people representing Santa Barbara, and now having a camp down there where 80, 100, and sometimes 120 kids a day will come down to that beach. None of them will really have known of Henry Bergman. Now they will. If we have a court with his name on it, it will give Henry, who is certainly deserving of this acclaim, they'll know who Henry Bergman was. Right now, Chris knows. I don't know if Rich he probably never met him, and a lot of people, but they will just have heard a name. But you tell a few stories about somebody, and the legend continues. The inspirational legend in Henry's case, because he was a real meek, quiet person. He would have hated all of this, hearing his name spoken so many times on microphones. But those of us that knew him are, proud to have called him a friend, and still envious of his athletic ability.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have one more speaker. Cliff Lundberg.
Thank you very much. My name is Cliff Lundberg. I'm Executive Vice President at Westmont College and a donor to the Bergman Memorial. I was close friends with Henry in the 60s, sorry. We attended Santa Barbara High School together. I graduated from Westmont and left town for 35 years for a business career and just returned 8 years ago. I attended many of Henry's tournaments as I was a player, not nearly of Chris's stature, but more of a groupie, and I would travel with Henry. And so I saw the impact that he had on others. And as the last speaker said, he was kind of a quiet and shy person, but he let his play doing the talking on the court, and he was admired by everybody who saw him play. I also attended Henry's memorial lunch and saw the affection that many local people and volleyball celebrities have for him. My career has been running businesses around the world. I've made lots of decisions on whether or not to approve and invest in various projects. And this project seems worthy to me for a number of reasons. Number one, it publicly commemorates a local hero. Number two, it mobilizes and engages citizens in fundraising for their town, their sport, and their beach. It provides a repeatable model for other East Beach courts. As far as I can tell, there's no budget impact to the city that I'm aware of. And finally, it involves minimal time commitment by city personnel. I think particularly appropriate to initiate, the timing to initiate this would be at Semana Nautica, as I believe has been proposed, because that was the first real local beach volleyball tournament there was here in Santa Barbara. And it was begun when Henry was at Santa Barbara High School, and it was the first tournament that he played in. So simply as a result, I, number one, enthusiastically support the Friends of East Beach proposal. I request your approval of this tribute project, and that you allow dedicated leaders like Roger Perry, Laz Karai, and Scott Wardlaw to proceed with a project that promises long-term benefit to the city of Santa Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that closes public comment, and it's back to the commission. Are there any questions or comments? I would just like to say we've talked, haven't mentioned so much. John did a little bit, but how many kids this affects, how many young people play down there. This addresses all ages. And to the guys stop playing, I don't think there's too many of the older ones, but down to the young kids that start their careers down there in John Lee's camp. So I think it's a broad benefit to the entire community.
I'm in favor of it. I'm going to vote for it. I'm glad we've got a group coming forward to help the Park and Rec department.
I would entertain a motion on this, I think.
It would be my pleasure to move to adopt but actually, wait, before I make the motion, I would want to just be sure that that this is a partnership between Parks and Recreation and the Friends of East Beach, right? That Parks and Rec would be acknowledged.
I'd just like to comment.
Push the green button. Yeah.
Just like to comment that we are extremely grateful to Nancy Rapp, who right now is having fun in Slovakia, for getting us this far. Mm-hmm. It was her advice and suggestion that we ended up with this project.
And Chair Longstreet, Commissioner Casebeer, I'll just add to that. I think the recognition that the Parks and Recreation Department gets through this collaboration is that we get to continue to use this great resource. We get to have young kids, teenagers learn the game, be around these idols, people they watch on TV. And as a department, as this project moves forward, we will be working with the Parks Division, the Recreation Division, and the Friends of East Beach for the installation as these courts start materializing.
We had talked a little bit at the Park Foundation, before you make your mind, about maybe having some sort of plaque with the history of beach volleyball at that site, because I think it's really important.
Commission, I just wanted to let you know it's not well represented on the flag that we've shown you, but the Parks and Rec logo is going on each of the courts in a prominent location, so we're identifying that collaboration.
Oh, thanks. I'm less concerned about that than the history myself, but so I would like to see if we can somehow come up with something that we can just put up there that says, it's an important spot in town, and I don't think a lot of people know it until they get there. But you were ready to make a motion there, Mr. Casebeer. Let's go for it.
May I also respond to you just very quickly that we have considered that, and we hope that the procedure for a plaque of some kind talking about the history that would explain to youngsters who have no clue who Henry Bergman is and what has transpired on that beach, we will look forward to your assistance and approval of something like that, because, then we're talking about architectural and
I know, it's probably a big
commission and all those things.
We'll take it one step at a time.
Keep it simple, lads. Okay. In that vein, it's my pleasure to move that we adopt this resolution to install the Henry Bergman Memorial Volleyball Court at East Beach, and further 15 additional courts will be constructed at a later date.
I would second that.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And thank you really so much for all the work you're doing on this. This is exactly what we have talked about all this budget year, of the things that will save the city recreations. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to tackle the budget. Ms. Zachary.
Chair Longstreet and members of the Commission, this will be the fourth public meeting the Commission's had on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2011. And as your packet from last week...
Mr. Hanna, I want to give you this sample to give to them. I'm giving back my presentation so that they can use it for funders. I don't need to keep all the paper. Sorry. There you go. Okay. back to the budget.
I kind of wanted that piece of metal.
It was a cool piece of metal.
Okay, back to the budget. Commissioners, as I was saying, this is your fourth meeting on the proposed budget. And as your packet from the previous weeks indicated, there have been many meetings by advisory committees, and you have a series of recommendations of different advisory committees to the department and to the commission. At your meeting last week, you did vote to recommend that council approve both the Gulf Division and the Creeks Division budgets. So this evening, we are only addressing the general fund portion of the Parks and Recreation Department budget, and that also includes the capital program. We have a couple of projects that are proposed for funding for fiscal year 2011. With that, since the Commission did initiate its discussion at the last meeting, I would just remind you that your goal tonight is to craft recommendations to Council. When you do that, we will put together a memorandum, a formal memorandum from the Commission to the City Council and forward that to them. We plan to do that in the next couple of days, so we will be moving forward with that. Thank you.
With that, I think we'll take the public comment now so that we have that for our deliberations. And we'll start with Mr. Tyburn. And he'll be followed by Susan Young.
This, in a roundabout way, has a lot to do with your budget. I feel there is a sneak attack on the citizens of the city, using their own trees on their own property to help raise money to fix your budget. Now, how does that happen? I believe you must start to tell the people of the city and publish this information, which I can tell you 99% of the people in the city know nothing about. I talk to the public all the time. I have yet to find one person that knows these certain facts. I've talked to the newspapers, I've talked to the television, and when I tell them what is going on, they are flabbergasted. They can't believe it. What the public does not know. Mr. Downey can tell people how to prune trees on their own property. He has that power, and you people gave it to him, taking away all their aesthetic senses of how they would want their trees to look, shape, and you have given him the power, and he is exercising it in the excess. They don't know that he wants you to prune now. You can only prune 1/4 of your own tree. Now, how does he ascertain what is 1/4?
Stick to the budget for us today.
Yes, this has to do with the budget because he's raising money by giving fines to people up to $5,000 because he doesn't like the way they prune the tree on their own property. And it has a lot to do with the budget. They don't know that he has mystical powers to ascertain what is 1/4 of a tree. I've asked him how he ascertains what is 1/4 of a tree.
You need to stick to the budget items and wrap up, please. You're over your 2 minutes. You're over your 2 minutes.
He tells me he can quantify how much 1/4 of a tree is by looking at the way the tree has been pruned. The public is totally unaware of these powers, and I think it is up to Parks and Recreation to let the public know.
Thank you.
What do you think about that, Mrs. Longstreet? What do you think about that? I'd like to ask you that question.
Thank you. Your time is up. Followed by Susan Young.
I'd like to continue.
No. I'm sorry. Your time is up.
You don't think this is important to talk about?
Not now. This is not on our agenda tonight about the tree trimming. That was several months ago. And we need to move on with our budget tonight. Thank you.
I think you're doing a disservice to the people in this city.
That is your opinion, and you are more than welcome to it. But right now, I have a meeting to run.
You owe it to the citizens of this city.
Not at this time in this meeting. Excuse me.
One more sentence. You owe it to the citizens of this city to let them know of the unusual powers that you have given Mr. Downey and how he has abused them.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan Young will be followed by Maggie McDermott.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is Susan Young, and I'm before you today as an individual resident from Santa Barbara, but it's a little bit convoluted because I'm also a city employee of Santa Barbara. And I gave it some thought to think, and the reason why I'm speaking is kind of multi-reasons, but one of them is that normally with positions that are up for elimination, it's not, the names are not connected with the position. And I have personally tried to kind of keep this time, because I've gone through this last year, on the down low, but I've been at several public meetings, to include today, in which my name is specifically mentioned. So I felt like since my name is out there specifically mentioned, then perhaps I should just add some comments as well. Then too, because it is today that you're making a recommendation to the council, that this may be my only opportunity to speak about that position, and it's all with due respect. The other reason was because I heard something from the Parks and Rec Commission meeting last week, and it kind of resonated something with me, and it was a comment that the chair made, and I'm not pretending to understand the reason behind it, but I kind of agreed with it. And that comment was with regards to the continuity of programming. And it was mentioned that last year, as we all know, that teen programs and community services was merged. And even though it was mentioned that there were some administrative reasons perhaps for that, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, to the public, one of the reasons, and the reasons that was also mentioned to me, it was to take the best of teen programs and the best of community services and merge them, the actual word merge being used, and that out of that we would get neighborhood and outreach services and have an opportunity to create something even better for the neighborhoods, which would include teen programming. Currently on the budget, even though it's an optional thing, it is the elimination of the neighborhood and outreach services supervisor, which is my position. If that position is eliminated, it is the last position of anyone from teen programs. Also, with the anticipation to perhaps the Teen Center going to PAL, which with no disrespect for the good work that PAL does, so I'm not making a connection with that happening. With that happening, that vestitude of what was teen programming, not only do we have any more staff from teen program, now the programs that the teen program staff was doing, which because of the budget last year, some of the outside programs we no longer did because of budgetary cuts. So most of the programs that we do is at the 1235 Teen Center. So essentially, there would be no more teen programming. That teen programming would now be gone because there's not another staff person from teen programming, no one that had that experience from that staff that would be there at the program. I was handed something when I came in today that you were also handed that attempts to list, to me, very poorly of what my job assignments are. A comment was made that I am quite often at the Teen Center. I sit at the Teen Center. That's where my office is. And because of budgetary cuts and because of the absence of the Teen Center coordinator, and I'll try to make this quickly, currently at the Teen Center, most of the monitors that are at the Teen Center are high school students. And because I'm the only one at the Teen Center that's over 21 years old, I'm not, and the only supervisor there, every day, daily, I'm supervising the teens, which I don't mind because that's what I should do. I'm supervising the teens at the Teen Center. Additionally, my specific assignment is to bring programming into the Teen Center. So it's kind of a fallacy that the question that was answered to Diego, that really none of my work affects the Teen Center. I'm constantly the only person there that remembers the rules and regulations of the Teen Center. So that is part of my job, and it is part of what I should do with the Teen Center. the positions listed on this memo that I was just handed also again gives all of my assignments to community services staff. Community services staff, albeit that are great, who have not done what I've done in team programming. So because of that, and because obviously of my passion, and additionally because of the assignments with the Youth Council have been very politically correct, and that they've said that they need an advisor, which they obviously do. But I'd like to hope that they're not only just saying they need an advisor, but they would like an advisor that has 15 years of experience, not just with the Santa Barbara Youth Council, but with other youth councils, also the experience of a person who's also done neighborhood outreach services. So my comment to you would be that if possible, that you would make a recommendation that the Neighborhood and Outreach Services section not lose another position. This budget was started to be created just 6 months within the time that we just merged, and I know my time is up. And the unit, the Neighborhood Outreach Services unit, hasn't really had an opportunity to do what the focus was to begin with, which was to merge teen programming and community services to help us to bring more programming out to the neighborhoods. So my recommendation as a citizen would also be that you give consideration to telling the City Council as part of your recommendation that Neighborhood and Outreach Services not lose another position, because all the positions lost by the Teen Center are also currently part of Neighborhood and Outreach Services. And I think that if our focus is to really help the neighbors and our focus is to give programming for youth and gangs, this is the one area in which we should not do that. And one last comment, I just wanted to tell Darak that those kids that go to the Teen Center now, though I don't like to label teens, 90% of them are teens of color and are considered socially, economically disadvantaged and are probably the teens that people consider at risk. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, Maggie McDermott.
Again, good evening, Commission. Thank you for having me. My name is Maggie McDermott, Chair of Youth Council. I just would like to reiterate the recommendations that Youth Council put forth last week, just so you have this fresh in your mind for tonight when you make your decisions. On the adjustments included in the recommended budget, Youth Council opposes the elimination of the vacant Teen Center coordinator, which would be item number 5. We oppose it just because, you know, what happens if all of a sudden, for some reason, you know, the city budget does turn around and we do want, and for some reason, you know, if the transfer to Pell does not occur, we want that position because we do want that sense of consistency. If we had that position, there would be somebody there with the teens, you know, day in, day out for more than just a couple months. And then also, Youth Council did vote to oppose the transfer of the Teen Center to PAL, which would be item number 9 on that list. Even after the meeting, we still oppose it. I mean, that is our stance. We want the Teen Center to stay with the city, although if the recommendation is to go through and the Teen Center is transferred to PAL, obviously we would like to form a strong relationship with PAL and work with PAL to keep Youth Council as an advisor to the Teen Center, because I can't reiterate it enough that the Teen Center would not exist without Youth Council, and we want Youth Council to remain a very large part of Teen Center and Teen Center programming. And then also on the options for consideration list, number 3, which would be eliminating a position in the Neighborhood and Outreach Services. That would be a grave decision, not only for Youth Council, but for Neighborhood and Outreach Services. Youth Council needs that position as an advisor. I did look over the recommendations, or just kind of the overview, the memorandum about yesterday's meeting, and I was going through, you know, it was breaking down the different roles that, how the Youth Council advisor could be split up. I've never worked with one of these people, and I think that shows a lot of, you know, how great a position the Neighborhood and Outreach Services supervisor is to Youth Council. I mean, that is like that's our backbone, obviously, with Youth Council. So it would be just, you know, heartbreaking for the Youth Council alone to lose that position. And of course, I think for Neighborhood and Outreach Services, because that is the sole position left from teen programs.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the public. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Nick. Come on up. I apologize. Didn't.
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Separated.
Commissioners. Good to see you tonight. You know, I was thinking about this, and this is on the budget, on the Teen Center. What if we were to go ahead and phase our partnership with PAL? What if we were to hold on to the coordinator position for 6 months past September and get these youth at risk who don't trust and need to learn to work with the PAL officials to slowly, with city staff you already have right now, have them come in certain hours, the youth, when they can be there with staff that they know, and then slowly phase the PAL merger in there so that they get to know each other in a period of time instead of just September 1st, PAL's coming in and that's that. I think that would be a fantastic way to do it. And I think that would still reduce the budget, and maybe the coordinator position or others who are on, we've got a couple more who work at the Teen Center, would be willing to do that. And I'm just thinking that might be a really good way to eliminate the problem and give those kids a chance to build that trust and give the officers a chance to get to know the kids in a more drawn out and not right away method.
Thank you.
Just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Okay. So now it is, public comment is closed and we're back to the commission. Comments, questions, and I'd like a little input on how you want to go about this tonight. We have some recommendations to formulate. We've basically been working off the two lists. And I do think if what we need to talk about is what do we agree or disagree that's on the list, if there's any of those issues. And I'm going to say we can't just disagree. We have to have an alternative. It's not as simple as saying, you know, well, we don't like $31,000 worth of it. So, I mean, I think we need to make a recommendation in a more constructive, I guess I'd say, manner to it. So, I know I spent a lot of time thinking about this. It's not easy. There's nothing on that list personally that I want to cut. So what are people's thoughts? We've talked about prioritizing. I will tell you that I came up with some priorities myself about how I look at the budget. And those are, I went back to what we talked about a year ago, which was clean, green, and open. That being a top priority of our department. The next thing I came up with was serve the most people. I'm probably not going to say this the most eloquently, but let's not shoot ourselves in the foot by decreasing all of our revenue. We have to be, when we look at our cuts, we have to make sure positions we cut will not severely impact our revenue, because that, and that we have to look at at keeping things that we will be able to redevelop later. Safety is, of course, a top concern, and the one thing I put down was keep the pools open. So that's sort of where I started in my line of thinking. I'd like to hear from some other people on what your thoughts are. Mr. Burns.
You know, it's so easy to say ditto, and maybe I would, but I make a couple more comments. Nobody wants to be doing any of these cuts, but we've got to make the cuts, and with the recommended budget adjustments, we basically have 10 of them, And what we're trying to say is, if we don't have to give all of them, if we don't need to give all of those adjustments, which ones would we want to keep, or which ones would we want to get back as soon as possible? We've had some very strong opinions from Youth Council that I agree we'd like to keep anything youth serving, teen serving available. I like the comment that Nick had on maybe phasing in the transfer to PALS. I'm not sure if it's feasible, but it's something that was a little outside the box that made sense. So I guess if we're going to go with this, I would like to say that whatever we're able to do to keep the teen programs as much as possible away from being cut, the better. But at the same time, I realize staff spent a lot of time coming up with these recommendations, and there was a lot of effort involved. So I'm comfortable with what the recommendations are. I'm just hoping that if we don't need to cut as much, that we save. That would be number 5 and number 9 on the first budget.
Other comments? Diego.
Definitely agreeing with Commissioner Burns on the fact of the proposed elimination of the neighborhood outreach service supervisor. It definitely would be a critical hit for the community, and just with everybody at the teen center, along with this combining it. If there somehow definitely could be a combination of combining that position with the transfer of the PAL, it definitely would give a great outcome. And with also just the whole transfer of PAL, it definitely would give another good connection with the teen center, with the youth council, to be involved with PAL and to just emerge with each other, just to work together, where we can actually reach out to all the other outreach services on Franklin, the Lower West Side, along with the West Side Center. And it would also, if there could also be possibly a youth council member going to the PAL board meetings and being a representative, that definitely would just help youth council be more involved with PAL and just decision making of what programs, what's going on with the teen center.
I think that's an excellent idea to have a liaison that way, because I think then it would give the youth council such a good overview of what their structure is and where their programming's going. I think that's a super idea. Yeah, and the one thing I've got to say, when we look at the teen programs and the neighborhood and outreach supervisor position, and the reality of this budget is we can't have all of them. All of them add up to well over $200,000. We're looking at $220,000. So that's a big hit. Where would we come up with $220,000 in cuts? So I support the transfer of PAL to PAL. And the supervisor position is on the second cut list. It's not a first cut list. But, with any luck, that we won't be going there. So I think it is the trade-off we're looking at is there, to me, quite honestly. Did you have? Go first.
I'm just going to underline a lot of what others have said. I think our guts are all probably in the same place. I was really hoping that there was going to be a deal that came out of that meeting last night with PAL, or whenever it was over the last couple of days. Was it yesterday? I was hoping that what the report that would come back was like, we talked, this is what we came up with, this is our plan, this is how we're going to make it work, versus we talked, we expressed concern, and the youth council's against it. And so now I'm like, I have to against what the youth council recommended. Now, I can do that. I will do that if I have to. But I was hoping that a deal would be cut. And I'm not blaming anyone. I wasn't in the room. Maybe if I was in the room, it would have gone even worse. I don't know. So I'm sure everybody is totally coming at it from a position of good faith. I'd like to see that deal. That would make me a lot more comfortable about this. And I think it can be made. I think what intern Torres Santos just said is a good idea. Getting some actual youth participation on the PAL board. I think this needle can be threaded. I also hear from the youth council that, and this gets to what Chair Longstreet was just saying, that if we have to swallow one pill, it would definitely be the PAL transfer over eliminating the position, and I would definitely agree with that. And the reason for that is not even necessarily by that particular position or that particular job description or whatever, but it's that I think we need a top-to-bottom evaluation, even if we were flush with cash, about our youth programs and how that integrates into our neighborhood and outreach services, because I think we're redoing that, right? I mean, we're rethinking how it is we govern, how it is we do services in communities, in neighborhoods, how we listen to neighborhoods, how we empower neighborhoods. And so, maybe we don't want maybe we wouldn't want a full-time staff person at that teen center. Maybe we would want them at the East Side Center, maybe, or split. I don't know. But the fewer positions there are, the more constrained that discussion is, right? The fewer options and tools we have. So, I would like to see positions that are in general designated for neighborhood outreach, teen programs, community service, these sorts of things. I want to see as many of them stay in the budget as possible, because it allows us to have this bigger conversation about restructuring these things with some resources. I know hopefully now, the next part of the process, maybe we'll go through and ranking them, but in terms of my general, maybe not, I don't know, but my general thing is that although I would have liked before tonight to see a concrete deal on how the PAL transfer can be done, that I definitely am more in favor of that than eliminating the position. So,
and speaking to that, again, we're back to the constraints of budget. It's like PAL can't develop a program till they have a lease. They don't have a lease till it gets done at council. It's the same as the same constraints we go through with, we can't discuss the budget till council gets it, and then, everybody scrambles. So I think we're going forward. I think it was a good faith effort on both sides yesterday. I don't think Youth Council has also had a chance to go back and have a full meeting and discuss the ramifications of it. Now, I'm going to put a word out there after what you said with neighborhood and outreach services, and that is that all those jobs may change. When this reorganization, with that, does not mean that because you were the youth council advisor, you're necessarily always going to be that, or that you might be. That we have a lot of qualified staff, and I'd hope in that way we look at things that the staff will be as flexible to provide programming and tackle new jobs the way it needs to be done. So when we go top to bottom, means a lot of things. We'll have a new teen council next year who are not going to have quite the same expectations, so they might be ready for a little change. It's all fluid. It's not written in concrete, nor should it be, because it should grow and get better every year. That should be our goal, not to be the static thing we have always been. So I'm putting in a push for that creative side. And yeah, I think we need, it would be wonderful to keep all the staff we could. Now, I think that's true in neighborhood and outreach services, and now I have to put my plug in for the place we serve the most amount of people is our parks. And we need to maintain them and keep them clean and keep them safe. That is where our families that don't have a backyard go. That is where people recreate for free. It is the affordable place to have a party. I want to make sure that we do the best we can to protect that asset to our community. So that's, we get tied up in some of these higher level issues, but I want to make sure we look at the grounds maintenance worker who has no face for us here and is out in the field, but is doing that work, that we not forget that. So, okay. Mr. Casebeer.
Ms. Zachary, could you bring us up to date the schedule with the budget, what we're expected to do tonight and moving forward?
Be happy to. Chair Longstreet, Commissioner Casebeer, and Commissioners, we are, at least in the city sense, the City Council is finalizing presentations from different departments and will begin their budget deliberations as soon as next week. The budget is scheduled to be approved at the June 29th City Council meeting. We have done our budget presentation to Council. We did that on May 10th. What you see before you, and we brought forward a presentation that we provided to the Commission at your April meeting, are items that are in our budget that were recommended adjustments. I would indicate that that's in an order. They're not in they could be reordered. For example, if the Commission wanted to make recommendations to change that order or reinstate something in that, I would caution you that something else would have to go in its place. And if Ms. Hannah could actually go back a slide. Oh, sorry, I don't know actually the full, our initial, just as a reminder of really where the city is. We were initially given a 12% target, almost $1.6 million, and what's currently in the budget is $643,000. That the second option list is an additional $311,000. That only gets us to $954,000 of the 1.6. And really, it'll be Council's job, with your input, to determine how to get to that full number. And that's why we have that second options list, as do all departments. The idea is that the City Council can look at a variety of options to come up with the reductions that we need to take citywide. So I just wanted to sometimes we forget and sort of step back, and in addition to what the department has put together in its proposed budget, that we would like the Commission to make its recommendations, are the bigger picture of the city budget, in that things could change as well. So if you have very specific concerns or very specific suggestions that would help the City Council in their deliberations as it relates to our budget, that would be helpful in your recommendations. Above and beyond, if we could, we'd reinstate the following three things. But really sort of the theme and the trend from the Commission's standpoint, I think, is something that the City Council can use as they move forward in their budget deliberations.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this today. And one of the things that I realized is some of the budget recommendations are easily restored, and some are not easily restored. And that when we're looking at different ones on the list, some are real structural changes to the department and how things are run, and others are, close the pool, open the pool. I mean, you have to hire a little more staff, but it's not like we're leasing the facility. It's that we just shut the doors on it. So that's when we look at it, there's two ways to think about it. One is, those should go at the top of the list to restore because they're easy to restore. you know, what are we talking about restoring? The other one is that those are things that could easily be opened at a later date. So, you know, I would like tonight, I don't think we're going to solve this whole thing. I would like us to come up with some recommendations to council on, number one, this list. This list, I feel, was gotten to over the 6 months of meetings we had. I think it addresses the concerns that we stated at those meetings. And I am comfortable, I'm not happy, but I am comfortable with how they were arrived at. Because, I mean, we do have to take some responsibility in ourselves, and that we said, look at who provides programming and find out how you can move things out of our budget. That's the teen I mean, that was what the charge was. And no, we don't like it when we see it up there, but so are we comfortable with this list, I guess? Yes, sir.
Could we also see the secondary list?
And the one thing I do want to remind everybody, because this came up at council, is Ortega Park is slated to be closed this summer, correct?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, Ortega Park Recreation Swim specifically, there are still swimming lessons going on, and those are in the proposed budget. But yes, it was approved last year. It was not reinstated in the new proposed budget.
That is $2,300. And that's all.
Chair Longstreet, if I could add, some of the comments at the council hearing was a desire to reinstate that.
Right, right. And I think, personally, I would like to lend my support to that. It serves a number of young people. It is an important program to that East Side neighborhood.
And Chair Longstreet, again, if I could also add, at your meeting last week, Ms. McCaffrey did indicate that we are moving forward with fundraising efforts for programs such as Free Rec Swim at the Ortega Park pool. And I think we have some confidence that that's something that we certainly could fund for the next year. It's not confirmed yet, however.
Okay. Well, I think that should be one of our comments, is that we support that. How does the commission feel in that?
I would agree with that, definitely.
Okay, we got thumbs up on that one. So that's one comment, Carla. And I think we have, yes, Ms. Wiscombe.
That's easy.
We'll start easy, get harder.
There's a couple items on here which, I guess, for lack of, this is not the right way to say this, that I don't have as great a problem with, I guess, as some, easier to stomach than some of the other ones. And they would be number one, which was delay the replacement of rental equipment, and item number two, new revenue from beach and park concessions. That's and also number 10, which we really haven't discussed, which is transfer Las Positas tennis facility to Illings Park Foundation, which I think when we had the presentation on that from Ms. Rapp, that seemed like a really good fit that she seemed to be in favor of. So I guess my comment is those three to me are easy choice, and now we get down to maybe 7 that we perhaps should prioritize or discuss further.
I think so. So I think, yes.
And just as a comment, when we're talking of new revenue, it's my expectation, if as we get new revenue from the Park and Rec Department, from whatever sources, that the income actually stays in the Park and Rec Department, that it doesn't go into I hate to use this black hole that everybody talks about that we never see, but I'm assuming that the revenue stays here. Thank you.
I think since we're supported by the black hole, I think it does come back to us. I have down 1, 2, 3, and 4 are pretty much done deals and ongoing. They don't affect, well, they do affect current staff, but they're happening. 5 and 9 to me go together. I think that we've heard the comment from the commission. There seems to be a general, we generally agree with this. We will look at it at the end of the year when the lease comes up.
Not before.
Yeah, that we recommend, I think we have some recommendations for quarterly meetings to assess the programming, and that we will participate in staff, and if you need commission to participate in the programming decisions. That brings us to 6. And please jump in and just, if there's more comments, because I think otherwise we're not ever going to get through here if we don't just go down this list. It's not pretty, and it's not. Eliminate vacant grounds worker position and continue closure of 4 park restrooms and 50% reduction at Cabrillo landscaping maintenance. Is it possible rather than eliminate to keep vacant for the year?
Chair Longstreet, members of the commission, that's something that we actually already did this year, and part of looking at ways to reduce the city budget, vacant positions are generally ones that are considered easier to eliminate since they don't affect someone who's in a job.
But don't we receive the same savings by just keeping it vacant?
Yes, Chair Longstreet.
I would like to float that we, rather than eliminate the position, that we keep it vacant for the year.
That's, I think, a great comment, and could we do that on number 7, too? Where is the...
That would be 5 or 4.
Let's get through this one, and then we'll tackle the next one. Yes, sir.
I'm not the accountant, but whether we eliminate a vacant position or leave it vacant probably doesn't make a lot of difference, except for from an accounting perspective, it probably does. And if we eliminate the position, then we're able to show that it's not in the budget. If we keep it vacant, then somebody may get hired. And I'm not that technical on that, but there's a reason that's done that way, and if we want the person back, we can bring the person back.
No, we have to go to the council for a position to get the person back. Then we can't hire it. That's the big issue with it's a fight every time to get these positions back up. If we let them go that way, it takes years to get them back. It has to go before council and the whole thing. That's my problem with it.
Yeah, and on number 7, I was referring to reduce department administration by eliminating vacant business manager positions.
Yeah,
so
but let's see if we can get through, and then because I want to take that one all. Does that sound like we can make the recommendation? They're going to do what they want, but I would like to make the recommendation that we not eliminate the position but keep it vacant for the year.
Sure.
I agree with that.
Okay. Now let's move to 7 because it's a big one. And I would be inclined, I am not so aware of the duties of the administrative specialists. I do have concerns with the business manager and the marketing coordinator positions. Both of those But I know that I would rather reduce the marketing coordinator than get rid of it. That's for sure. But could we recommend these as temporary measures, the business manager and the marketing as the temporary measures to be reviewed in a year, or the high on our list to bring back? How does anybody else feel about those two positions?
I seem to remember Ms. Rapp. I remember that Ms. Rapp talked about the marketing program in the overall department as being taken over by individual staff members, kind of delegated to several different departments. Is that accurate?
I'm not completely familiar with the marketing. I know what the marketing coordinator does. And the reduction and the difference between the amount of time she spends on marketing now and the available funds, most likely Judith Cook will be taking the lead because, Judith McCaffrey will be taking the lead because it does link up with our fundraising, and most of the marketing is done either in recreation or also in golf because Creeks has their own marketing. So it probably will link up more closely with Judith. So probably not recreation supervisor staff taking that over per se, but we all serve on a marketing committee and we all strategize as to what brochures go out, our e-recreation newsletters, whatever free avenues that we can handle. So that's how the transfer of workload. It would be a reduced amount of marketing by the coordinator and it would transfer essentially to someone else.
Okay. I guess I'm less concerned with the marketing than I am with that business manager.
I would agree with that. I think that the business manager, the vacant business manager position, we should probably structure the language the same as we have for the other vacant positions and try to keep it on the books per se.
That the commission recommends maintaining the business manager position vacant, and feel strongly that it's an important component of running the department, both Parks and Recreation and the Golf Fund. Do they also work with Creeks at all? No, just, okay. Is everybody comfortable with that? Wait a minute, here.
Well, I mean, I am comfortable with it, and I understand the logic of. Often, we when we're in a budget downtime, we cut to the quick in a way that's not responsible. So I understand keeping the sort of flexibility to, but I'm wondering what criteria at this point, what criteria we're using to decide which of the vacancies we're eliminating and which we're holding vacant, because we skipped over 5, right? We agreed to 5. The teen center coordinator, we're saying we're going to eliminate that position. We're going to hold the grounds maintenance worker position vacant. One of the 2.5 positions in administration we're going to hold vacant and eliminate the other ones. I just want to hit the pause button and just say that just because it was sort of like halfway through that Chair Longstreet brought up this point, and which I think is a good point, but maybe we can take all of the elimination of vacant positions, just have a quick discussion of which ones we want to hold vacant and which ones we want to just go ahead and eliminate.
Yeah, and I think I'm confused too, because I think isn't it 4? Number 4, eliminate recreation program leader position due to transfer of the junior high school after-school program to PAL. So isn't it 4 that's linked to 9?
No, it's 5.
It's not. It is 5. Okay.
Yeah. That does not deal with the teen center. 4 does not.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't. Okay. But the teen center now has operated on hourly staff for quite a while, right? Okay. Is there any reason why the commission can't recommend that we leave the vacant position vacant and it continue to operate on hourly staff? And, that obviously opens up more options for the future when times are better.
We could just make a total recommendation that while we're saying eliminate or while we're saying leave something vacant, we want it understood that if money comes available, that the positions are available, that we're able to get them back without going through a lot of hoops. So, and maybe that's just a little wordplay, but that's... I mean, instead of just going on a one by one, we'll just say at all of these, if at all possible, we'd like to get them back.
Yeah, we could.
I mean, why not just say for all of them that we want to continue to hold them vacant?
And okay, I think that's good.
And as Chair Longstreet said, right, it's a recommendation. If there is some accounting or political reason that that the council prefers to actually eliminate them, that's what they're going to do. But I agree with the logic that we should be able to, if the budget situation were to turn around mid-budget, that the commission would be able to, without a huge rigmarole, sort of go through and begin to, the commission and the department, obviously, to be able to fill some of these positions.
What is the process? What is the budget? I'm new to this, and so I'm just curious, how do we know that there is more money when there is more money, and then who gets it? And
The Finance Committee gets reports regularly, and they'll have, there'll be turns, and then people will start clamoring for it. Different departments will start getting in line to reestablish what needs to happen. I mean, there'll be trees that need to be trimmed and streets that need to be paved and, all of those things. Then the council's decision will be to prioritize how to put back and how to catch up.
And then we could make reference to the vacant position in the adopted budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ms. Zachary?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, if I could just add, the city monitors its revenues regularly and does projections, multi-year projections based on revenue, expected revenue, and expenditures. We used to be in a 2-year budget cycle. We're now in a 1-year budget cycle, which means we really do budget every month of the year.
With
so we will
6-month
start
adjustment.
working on the 2012 budget probably in October. and so there's an ongoing iteration. And at that time, begin to look at, well, what is the funding that's available for each department based on what was funded in the previous year, based on estimated revenues, based on council priorities, community priorities, all of those things go into the discussion. We will be back here next year discussing the budget. We may very well have adjustments again next year. We may very well be able to say, fewer adjustments than we anticipated, or there may be opportunity, but it's really too difficult to project that. If I could advise the commission, in terms of your vacant positions, I will say that there is a push to eliminate positions within the city and make the organization smaller for any number of reasons. Part of it is, can we find different ways of doing business? And in some cases, some good opportunities are coming out, and we're repositioning ourselves. If the commission wants to recommend that instead of elimination, these positions remain vacant, you may want to recommend that for a period of time, or you may want to, we do have your comments as to why, because if the economy does turn around, there may be an interest in, restaffing programs, putting more people out to work in our parks, perhaps trying to couch that recommendation a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I mean, I think this is a recommendation for a one-year budget, so the recommended time is for a year. But I'm all ears to, like, what is the rethinking of government and reorganization that means that we have fewer people maintaining the parks. But that's not what I'm being proposed. Like, what I'm being proposed is we don't have enough money to do what we need to do, so we want to hold this vacancy open. So I agree with making the organization smaller if there's a rationale for it and we can get the job done with a smaller organization. I'm not for making the organization smaller for the sake of doing it, or making the organization smaller because we don't have enough money this year, when then we allow things to get out of control and then have much more expensive problems down the line. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to happen in this one budget year. I mean, I think that the recommendations from staff are very smart, and there's a lot of triage in this budget. But again, I'm all ears for a staff recommendation or recommendation from people in the public.
I want to try a little. I want to move this along because I don't think we're going to get too far.
Fair enough.
If we don't. Comments that the commission accepts and understands the proposed cuts. We would like to see positions kept vacant rather than eliminated, especially where they provide, help me with the wording on this, a direct service. By that I mean they clean a park restroom, they watch a child, they a direct effect on the public, maybe on services. Our concerns are that we keep our parks open to serve the most people possible, that we not decrease our revenues in our budget cuts, and that we maintain our safety. And the direct safety are the areas in our parks, our pools, and our beaches. Let's see, I have some. And that we be very mindful of not falling farther behind in our maintenance of all of our facilities and parks. We commend staff on the transfer of facilities and creative management that way. You'll help me with that. We are concerned about the cuts in youth programming and the and I think that covers our recommendations. And that we keep the pools open. The commission strongly supports keeping the pools open.
Just a point of order. Does the chairman pass the gavel when they make a motion, or can the chair make a motion?
Chair can make a motion. Well, I don't know. It's some recommendations. I guess we do need to move this budget, and I don't know. So I was crafting recommendations at that.
I absolutely support Chair Longstreet in what she just said. I think that is a superb way to go in terms of commission recommendations. I just want to bring one point possibly for discussion. You mentioned safety. When we were doing Plan Santa Barbara recommendations, one of the new goals is health of our citizens, and I'm thinking that to tie back in with Plan Santa Barbara, that we ought to consider the health and safety of our citizens, not just the safety.
Now, is everybody comfortable with those, and do you want to add things to them? Yeah, you added health. Anything else? I want it to feel like, feel like you got it in there.
Well, I guess if we can go to the additional items.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of feel like that's where the devil lay. I would just like to move item 3 down. And frankly, I'd like to move number 1 into the budget, actually, in addition.
Okay, I would be comfortable with a number. What are concerns about number 1? Diego, did you have some? Moving number 1 in? I mean, staff doesn't have a recipient of that lease yet, so.
I definitely agree with number 1. I mean, just leasing it out would actually, to a nonprofit, would just actually keep it open in a way, you can say. So.
Well, I see it as providing more positive activity in that park.
Definitely that.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, there was a comment by one of the Franklin Advisory Committee members that it would take an affordable rental facility out of the amount of facilities that we have right now, and they were in disagreement with it. But you're right, it could move programming that would bring people to the park for other reasons. We are looking at a job training program. Last I heard, they are not ready because of their budget situations to move even until mid-year. So at this point, with the renovation of the facility, we are scheduling it for private events.
So maybe what we want to say is we strongly support the leasing of Ortega Park Welcome House to a community-serving nonprofit.
Yes, and we work with programs and nonprofits that are part of our mission and have the same mission as we do in moving forward.
Perfect. Okay, so that's another part of it.
Do we want to prioritize the options list? I don't know if that would be helpful or
I don't
know.
I don't know. I think they're on I don't know. I struggled. I did a lot of time with that, and I'm not sure that it made a difference too much in when I did it. They're gonna take them all or they're not. And they're the ones that have the opportunity to truly move the money around. So what they want from us is, what do we care about, I think.
Well, I'm just thinking if we, for instance, if they needed another $100,000, do we prefer, on the options list, do we prefer that they take number 3 or do we prefer that they take number 4 and 6?
Yeah.
Or 7 and 1? I thought that may be helpful in terms of how we feel about that.
Chair Longstreet?
Yes.
I mean, in the past, that's what the council in the past budget discussions, that's what they've wanted, was a list in some kind of order. Now, we could be here all night if we try to get in an exact order, which is why I just recommended the sort of brutal or the very simple thing of saying that the first thing on the list is we don't see as onerous, we see as actually could be a benefit, and I would also propose that we take that, like, number 3 should be the last option. So, and this gets to Commissioner Wiscombe's point, which is like, yes, do 4 and 6 before you do 3.
And I would have to put 2 on the bottom.
Here.
Fine with me.
You know, and I'm just jumping in. Number 6 is the person that handles the arts and crafts show. The arts and crafts show makes money for the city. It's been around for either 40 years, and if we don't have the staff person to help them, it's mostly a bunch of artists, and some of them do not have the management expertise to run the show, and I think we'd be hurting the show, and that's a show that's been around for a long time. So I don't want. I also, you know, I don't really want to get rid of that staff person either. So we can spend hours, and obviously our hope is that none of this happens. But
as we look at it, to me, that position brings in revenue. I have to give that position some priority to stay, because rentals and all those other things give us revenue that we need, or some of our facilities sit open.
Chair Longstreet and Commissioners, if I could just say a bit about what this person does. They are also answering the phone, greeting folks that are coming to make reservations for both parks and facilities and that type of thing. Actually, a very much smaller part of their position is on the Arts and Crafts show, attending the meetings, writing the minutes, putting out the agendas, and working with the new artists that come in and want to show materials and join the show. At this point in time, rental reservation, the frequency, it has declined. In this particular budget, it's declined by about $125,000. So as the revenue continues to return and grow again, there would be a need to have the position come back. But right now, we're kind of a little bit slower with these. It is a very busy office, and we are promoting ourselves and trying to get more folks to come in and having good customer service. But yes, like you said, it is linked to revenue. I wouldn't link it so closely to Arts and Crafts Show revenue as I would to facility revenue. And as far as the tennis services position, that's very much linked to revenue. So, there's a lot of ways to look at the different positions, whether it's how many participations are underneath them, how much revenue comes in with them. There's a lot of different ways to set the priorities.
And some of it, what I think we'll see as with some of the vacant positions, is that they be restructured to maybe, not the current salary they're at, and then that'll, Okay, so how do we want to handle this, folks? We've all moved stuff down, but we don't have anything at the top anymore, so.
I don't know. I'm going to throw out a priority list just to open it up. This is in order from what's the word? Down to the least desirable. So from what we can stomach to what we really don't want to stomach. So number 1 is number 1. Number 2 would be 4. Number 3 would be 5. Number 4 would be 6. Number 5 would be 7. Number 6 would be 3. And number 7 would be 2. That's just throwing something out there.
Yeah. No, it seemed as reasonable as anything at this point. I will say, when we look at the Neighborhood and Outreach Services Department, and I know at some point we will have some retirements, that department does not need 2 supervisors at that level. That's not, let's take personalities and people out of it. We do not need $208,000 people at that. We need 1 supervisor and more workers doing community work. And that's, that's just where we need to be spending our money better. We're stuck sort of with people and then putting them in places rather than being able to start from scratch and move it on. So I don't think we get to solve that tonight, but that is my feeling on the neighborhood and outreach services. If I take the person out of it and the job, it doesn't take a $108,000 person to staff our youth council. So, but that's what we have right now, and so. And I think that's what we were talking about different ways of looking at how the government's set up. So, how does anyone feel about the list?
I will second her motion if that was a motion.
You know what? We had the first list, and but we should probably get through that. I guess maybe I want to say mine was a motion for those comments.
Why don't we merge the 2 things together?
Okay.
Okay, Carla has a question.
Let's let No, it wasn't at that point, but I think we want to.
We're back to the first part.
So we have the recommendations on the first list. We have Ms. Wiscombe's, and that's going to be our motion for our recommendation. Is everyone clear on this?
Yes.
As mud. And Ms. Wiscombe made that motion. Do you like that?
Yeah, yes.
She'll hand them to you, as a matter of fact, I bet.
1, 7, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5.
2, 3, 4. You got it.
Mm-hmm. So that's a motion. And do we have a second?
Second.
Wait, what? That's not what I heard at all.
Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute.
2 is 4, 3 is 5.
Yeah, 2 is 7. 2 is 7. Okay, number 1 is 1.
Just, yeah.
Why don't you, if you have it written.
Confusing the way you read it to me then.
You want to use number 1, then number
2. Yeah, that's what I had too.
Chair Longstreet,
Okay,
Commissioners.
Let me just read it. We have, yes, 1, 7, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that it?
It's not what I wrote down or what I was in support of.
Okay, well, then let's try it again. We'll take that motion off the floor and we'll try it again. What did you hear?
What I heard, both Diego and I wrote down the same thing, which was 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 2.
Okay, 1, 4.
But we could have both failed in the same way.
Okay. 1, this is from what we can stomach to what we can't stomach. So Ortega Welcome House was 1. Closing the Oak Park Wading Pool was number 7 at the bottom of the list.
Right, that's right.
Okay. Number, restructure and reduce neighborhood outreach services positions is number 6.
Second to last.
Bottom.
Right.
Second from the bottom, yes. The weekday and seasonal closures of the parks, that's number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Restructure and reduce parks operation management and downgrade 1 of 3 park supervisor positions to lead worker, that's number 3.
Mm-hmm.
It was, yes, it's number 5 on that list. It's number 3 on the motion that I made. Restructure and reduce coordination of parks and facilities rental services I put it number 4. That is number 6 on the list. And reduced tennis services to daytime drop-in is number 5.
Yep. Well, I wasn't alone.
Okay. How does that work? Is that?
Yeah.
we
No, it's
got it
good.
right?
We were all on the same page. Just calling them different numbers.
Same page, different numbers. Okay. Then now that's the motion. And with the recommendations on the first list, is there a second to that?
Second.
Chair Longstreet?
Yes,
If I could
discussion.
just interject, I think what you need to do is amend your first motion with the second part.
Okay.
So either take them separately or accept the second part of the motion, the second motion as an amendment to your first motion.
Okay, then that's what we'll do. We'll accept it as amendment to my motion and a second on it, which we'll let her say. Okay.
You can't. You're the chair. You can't throw up your hands. Yeah. You propose an amendment.
Yeah, I propose the amendment to my original motion as just read to.
Okay, we're gonna take them separately. There's a motion I made on the floor. Is there a second to that motion for the recommendation?
Second.
Okay. Is there discussion on the recommendations on list 1? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we're going to go to a second motion from Ms. Wiscombe for the list I will not dare say the numbers of again. And she has a motion on the floor, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion on this list? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That was hard work, and I appreciate everybody hanging with us on that. Now we have to do fees and charges, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any questions or concerns on the fees and charges list?
Fees and charges and the capital.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to accept the fees and charges.
I second.
Is there? I would looking for a motion. Do you want to move?
I'll make a motion to accept the fees and charges.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now to discussion. Mr. Caseper, did you have a question here?
Does the issue of like the fees for the music festival enter into this recommendation? That
good question.
Because especially if there's 2 other potential events
I hope not.
to utilize the West Beach facility, wouldn't it?
Chair Longstreet and Commissioner Caseper, the special event fee that the department has for the event space is part of what you'd be approving tonight. As with any special event, fees can vary based on the level of staff support, the type of utilities, all the different conditions under which an event may be permitted. And so for something like the West Beach Music Festival or another event, those will vary, and based on the conditions for putting on those events, there's more or fewer fees, which essentially offset our costs.
I think, though, we're discussing something else. We're discussing a new fee. We're discussing a per-ticket surcharge user fee that was mentioned at that meeting. And it was something that I did shoot a memo off that next morning about whether that should be part of this year's budget. And we really thank you for thinking of that. I think we might accept the fees and charges as they are and make a recommendation that council look at establishment of a user fee.
User fee for a user fee for profit events.
A user fee, I think what we want is a per ticket for-profit large events. Okay, so would you accept that?
I can amend my motion to include that, yes.
Okay. The seconder accept that?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the fees and charges with the recommendation that a user fee for for-profit large event, a per ticket fee be. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And now to the capital budget. These ones are easier. I think we do have some comments on the capital budget, though. I would like to send a strong message from the commission that we have grave concerns about the conditions of our facilities. We accept the capital budget, but that we.
I would agree with that, particularly in light of the cuts we're going to face in FY11.
Okay, is there?
So I think, are we saying that the general fund capital improvements that are on that list, we're agreeing that that's what we want to have done? And do we need a motion for that effect, to that effect?
Commissioner Longstreet, Chair Longstreet and Commissioner Burns, these are the 3 projects that are recommended for the very small amount of money that's being allocated from the general fund for capital projects throughout the city. As you know, we have a huge capital program, tens of millions of dollars of unfunded capital needs. These 3 projects are projects that directly relate to people that either use our parks or have access to our beaches, and that's why they are recommended for funding. They're also projects that will move forward despite where we are in terms of the economy and put us in a position to either apply for grant funds or get the projects done.
Okay.
I would like to strongly recommend that when City Council gets to look at this and decide that they want to chop something, that we are there to tell them don't. Because I think last year we had some capital projects that they decided really weren't that important, and these really are important projects.
Then why don't you craft a motion on that one? With those words in it?
That'll be. I move that we strongly request that City Council keep these projects in the capital program, and that they do not take them out, because these are very important projects. And I move that these are our recommendations to council.
I'd second that.
Okay, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Didn't know it would take this long, did you? Okay, so we have one more item on our agenda.
Chair Longstreet and Commission, we have one more item. Mr. Benson, the Creeks manager, would like to provide you the presentation on the Mission Creek Restoration and Fish Passage project at Talent Road. This is a project that is moving forward. We had intended to adjourn to a site visit. You may determine you want to put that off to another day. However, this is a project that is important to make sure the Commission is up to speed on before it moves forward.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Benson. The project may be completed before you get to do your presentation. What? How long is the presentation? I think we can go. If the Commission would want a break, that'd be fine, but I think we can go. Okay, let's go. No, not that one.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Cameron Benson. I'm the Creek Restoration Water Quality Improvement Manager for the City of Santa Barbara, and I'm here tonight to present a project to you that we've been working on for several years. It's our Mission Creek Restoration Steelhead Recovery Project. This particular component is at the upstream end of Oak Park at the Talent Road Bridge. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the Southern California steelhead trout. this particular species has a very interesting life history. It's an anadromous fish, which means it is hatched in freshwater creeks, lives there for a year or so, and then during a storm event will swim out and live in the ocean for several years and then come back up the freshwater creek to spawn. The numbers of steelhead trout, the historic numbers, have declined dramatically in the last 60 or 70 years, so that now there's only 1% of the historic population remaining. As a result of that, they've been listed as an endangered species under the Federal Endangered Species Act, and the threats to their continued survival are things like urbanization, agriculture, forestry, mining, water diversion, and specifically one of the most significant threats to their continued existence are barriers along those creeks to get up into the upper watersheds where the best spawning habitat exists, and so they're not able to reproduce. The purpose of this particular project is to help improve steelhead trout migration in Mission Creek. This and two other projects we're working on Mission Creek will together open up nearly 4 miles of habitat in Mission Creek, including 2 miles of what fish biologists have deemed to be high quality rearing and spawning habitat. The project will also restore wildlife habitat in Oak Park through a restoration effort with native plantings. This is a project map that actually identifies all 3 projects that we're working on. The one I'm talking about tonight at Talent Road is right here in the center. This is Oak Park here, and the project is up at the upstream end. We have downstream from that a project in concrete flood control channels that are also fish barriers. They're known as the Caltrans channels, and they run essentially from Los Olivos down to Canon Perdido Street. And then we also have designed a fish passage project up at the Highway 192 bridge, where there is a barrier similar to the one at Talent Road. I'll show you a picture of each of those a little later. Here's a photograph of the Talent Road bridge area and what the creek looks like there. As you can see in the foreground, you have the natural creek bed, and then you have a concrete apron that goes from that point all the way up to the upstream side of the bridge. That bump right there where people are standing is actually a sewer line that runs right through the bed of the creek. It was damaged in the big storms in 1995, and then more concrete was poured on top of it. This creates a barrier for fish for several reasons. One is that, excuse me. One is that you can see it's a pretty steep jump for a fish to get up, even when, obviously here it's dry. That's very difficult for fish to get through. But the fish only migrate when we have a storm event coming through. We've got a lot of water coming down. This is a significant jump for a fish to get up. Water moves very, very quickly over concrete, and so there are issues with depths, jump heights, and water velocity that make it virtually impassable for fish. So our project is designed to remove that concrete barrier. We're going to relocate that sewer line, so not only can we get the sewer line out of the creek right there, we're going to move the sewer line up closer to the bridge abutment so it will be protected, and we won't have boulders coming down the creek, smashing the sewer line and causing water quality problems in the creeks and at the beaches in the future. The actual design is to construct weirs which have riffles and will create pools. And basically what we're trying to do is create some resting areas for the fish. The riffle areas are shallow, rocky areas, and the fish can migrate through those and then get into a pool and rest and then jump to the next pool. We're creating, we'll have 3 pools in that area. And we're also going to be removing non-native plants, which in this area is primarily ivy, and we will be planting 1,500 native plants. The project area here, just kind of describe where we are on the plans. This is Talent Road Bridge. water is moving down this way, and that concrete apron you saw is approximately this area here. It's about 80 feet long. The entire project reach is 300 feet of creek, and you can barely see it on here, but the Oak Park tennis court, this is about the corner of the tennis court, so that gives you some idea of how long that is. It'll go from the bridge to about the corner of the tennis court, and we'll have 3 pools built in, and you can see there'll be very large boulders. They'll be keyed into the sides of the banks to keep them stable, and as water comes out of this bridge abutment, it'll scour out the pool. As it gets over this next weir, it'll scour out the pool, and so it's designed to be self-maintaining and kind of replicate a natural stream system. A current status for this project is that we have completed our final design plans. We completed our environmental review approximately a year ago. We finally completed all the permitting, which is pretty extensive for a project like this. It's in the creek bed. We have permits from the Department of Fish and Game, from NOAA, from the Army Corps of Engineers. We've gone to ABR for review, and we just recently went out for our construction bids, and I'm happy to report the bids, the range of bids came in lower than what our engineer's estimate was, and I'll jump right into the funding for the project. This slide is a little outdated because we've received and opened the bids since I put this slide together. Our actual estimated construction costs for this project are now approximately $875,000 instead of $963,000. About $650,000 of that will be covered by 2 grants we've received from the California Department of Fish and Game and from NOAA. And approximately $90,000 of the project will be funded through the city's wastewater division as part of the sewer relocation. The Creeks division is actually partnering with wastewater because we both receive some benefit from relocating that line, and so we have an agreement to each pay half the cost of the sewer line relocation. And then the amount of the Measure B funds that will be used for this project are now approximately $135,000. Our construction schedule for this project is we are shooting to begin construction in mid-July. We're shooting for July 12th, and we're aiming to complete construction by October 15th, and hopefully before it starts raining hard. As I mentioned earlier, we do have 2 other fish passage projects. The reason we have these 3 projects going is that these have been identified as 3 impassable barriers for fish. So we're working on all of them together. Really, for the project to be successful, we need to have all 3 built so that the fish can get up into the upper watershed where we have year-round water to support them. The Caltrans channels is going to be the largest of those projects. It's a mile of concrete flood control channel. We went through a very extensive concept design process where we actually built a small-scale physical model of those channels to test the flows and ensure that we weren't going to cause any kind of flooding with different designs, as well as being able to allow fish to pass and not create a big maintenance burden. We're now in the process of our final design for that project. Just to simply state it, we're basically creating a low flow channel within the larger flood control channel that will concentrate the water and give us depths, and that low flow channel has some baffles in it that will slow water and create resting places for fish. It's not designed to really create habitat necessarily for them, but allow them to get through it and get up to where they need to be. So far, we've been incredibly successful securing grants for the design for that project, and we've received something over $800,000 in grant funding for design for that project. Our goal is there are actually two separate flood control channels. The upstream one is about 3/10 of a mile long. The lower one is 8/10 of a mile long, and there's about a 4/10 of a mile natural channel in between. We're going to try to construct the upper, smaller channel next summer, 2011, and we're aiming to construct the larger channel in the summer of 2012. And that's a picture of what the channel currently looks like, and then we'll just run a low-flow channel down one side of that. We've also been working on design for a fish passage for Highway 192, and it's very, very similar to the design for Talent Road. While we were in the process of design, it came to our attention that that COME, which is the Kachuma Operations and Maintenance Board, is proposing to replace the South Coast Conduit, which is a water line, very large water line, I think 36-inch pipe that runs under Mission Creek up at Highway 192. So we were able to hand off the design to them. When they go to construction and do their water line, COME is going to actually construct the fish passage project when they put it all back together. So COME will be doing the permitting and the construction management, and they're anticipating construction in summer 2011. And there's a picture of that, and you can see there's a nice big pool there, but then again you have this perched concrete apron going up underneath the bridge, and same problems exist there. And that's it. So I'll conclude there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Ms. Wiscombe.
Yeah, this is really exciting stuff. I'm just great. My only question is, the Caltrans channel is a different design from the. I gather the Talent Bridge and probably the Highway 192 will accommodate fish fry and habitat for the little guys, whereas the Caltrans is basically just getting them up there. Is that right?
Highway like Caltrans.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes, that's exactly right. It's really to create passage. This channel was built with one purpose, and that is to get water through as fast as possible and prevent any flooding. We don't want to interfere with the flooding aspects of that. In addition, this section of the creek is dry just about every summer, and as is Talent Road. So we need to get the fish up through those areas, and even up above Highway 192. That pool down below Highway 192, some years it has water in it year-round, some years it doesn't, depending on our rain year. And we really want to get them up higher than that, even up into Rattlesnake Creek or Rattlesnake Canyon, and far up into Mission Creek.
I don't, being from the Seattle area, when the salmon spawn, they turn red. And do steelhead do the same? But I've got to think, that's a question, but I've got to think too that there's tremendous opportunities here for education of kids and adults too on this, and plenty of. I hope at some point there'll be some opportunities, maybe for some viewing platforms if it's like salmon and you can actually, see them. They're just in droves in some of the creeks that I've worked in Seattle. I mean, it's so cool to watch them.
Right. A couple of things about that. First of all, that's an excellent question and comparison. A major difference between steelhead and salmon is salmon, when they spawn, they die. That's it for them. Steelhead live to spawn another day. They'll go up, they'll spawn, and if there's a storm, they'll go back down, they'll go back into the ocean and stay there. They'll come back up and they'll spawn again. They survive. Regarding the numbers, as I said, the population of steelhead is of this species of steelhead is the population that's remaining is 1% of historic populations. We're talking about 500 individuals in existence now. So the numbers are smaller. In Southern California, the largest steelhead run for this species was in the San Ynez River, and it dropped by 90% right after Bradbury Dam was built. So the numbers are significantly smaller than what you see in the Pacific Northwest. And then the last thing I would say is we started with a design engineer on this project who is based in Seattle, and it was interesting. It took a while for him to understand the hydrology in this area and the types of storms we get, and so the design changed pretty dramatically, and we kept trying to get him to shrink the size so that, because we said, we have flashy floods coming through these channels. Most of the time we have small amounts of water going through. We need to concentrate that water so that we can create the largest window possible for migration.
Well, I hope even though the numbers are smaller and they don't die, I'm glad they live to spawn another day. I hope that there will be some educational opportunities associated down the road when you get these projects completed. It's pretty exciting.
Thanks. And we have been involved with conferences locally. There have been steelhead festivals in Santa Barbara. There have been giant, beautifully painted steelhead trout that have been migrating up State Street in past years, and we actually, some of the grant funding we've received for these projects has come from private nonprofit and private foundation grant funding, and we've been working with the Environmental Defense Center, and they've actually set up a separate outreach program, and they're doing community outreach based on steelhead and Mission Creek specifically.
And there has been another side to that where people are concerned for the fish's safety if they get too much publicity. So, we want to keep our fish safe.
One last thing on that is I want to say we have, in 5 of the last 7 years, we have had large steelhead migrating up the creek, and it is incredible to see them. And I had the privilege of standing on one of the bridges in downtown Santa Barbara and seeing about a 30-inch steelhead swimming down there trying to dig out a red or a nest, and there were 2 small males next to her, probably 12 to 16 inches long, that were hanging out with her, and there were families and kids leaning over, and their parents, and everybody was completely blown away to see a fish that big coming up Mission Creek in Santa Barbara. It's really remarkable.
It's amazing. Mr. Casebeer.
I'm thrilled with this project, and I have read and seen books and photographs of the 1800s, early 1900s, hundreds, thousands of steelhead in Mission Creek. And you talk to the old timers, and they were there. So I applaud your work. I'm just curious, between Cannon Perdido and the Pacific, it's more a natural creek. Are there plans to restore that?
Why? I think there's a 20-year plan to restore that.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we're constantly working on restoration efforts throughout throughout all of the creeks in Santa Barbara, and we have an extensive capital program, and going out over the next 6 years, we have restoration efforts going on throughout. One important area that we're looking towards in the very near future is some restoration around Mission Lagoon, and the lagoon down there is a very important component and nursery for steelhead as well. But generally speaking, it's an urbanized area. It's an urban stream, and we don't have water except for down in the lagoon. We don't have water year-round in a lot of parts of the creek. So with these fish, we want them to get through and get up into the upper part of the watershed.
Now, we were going to adjourn. Did we need to take action on this report? We don't need to. But we were going to adjourn to a site visit, and it is 7:30 already.
I move to postpone the site visit?
Okay, a second. I think that'll work better, don't you, Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. It is so exciting to see this project go forward because you've put a lot of work into it. Everyone has. So, all right. With that, I think we'll adjourn the meeting tonight.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you.